It's the Infinite Podcast. Go tell your friends. It's the Infinite Podcast. My God, it never ends. It's the Infinite Podcast with Rob and Prequel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite Podcast, the podcast covering the infinite and ever-expanding multiverse of fandom for movies, comics, TV shows, video games. We got you covered. I'm Rob. I'm here as with Court. Court, how's it going, man?
Going great. Going good. Feeling great. You know who's not always feeling great, though? Homelander.
Homelander, yeah, he's...
Oh, sorry. The Homelander.
the Gambit? The Punisher?
The Gambit. The Punisher, the Daredevils.
Yeah, so we...
The Blades. The Blade. Singular.
Yeah.
There's only ever been one Blade.
Only ever gonna be one Blade. Yeah, so we are going to talk about The Boys this week. We're catching up on a bunch of stuff that we hadn't got a chance to talk about because of Deadpool and Wolverine, then Comic-Con, then D23, and yeah. So we did, what was it, 3 weeks ago we talked about episode... No, it was more than that now. It's like a month and a half ago at this point. We talked about episodes 1 through 3 of The Boys when they came out all at once. So we'll talk about the rest of the season and then season 4 as a whole. And then all the other stuff, obviously, that they have cooking up the pipeline, including the prequel series with Jensen Ackles and I forget the actress's name who plays Stormfront off the top of my head right now.
And I believe we're still also getting that show. I think it's Vought Mexico or The Boys, something like that.
Yeah, The Boys Mexico or something like that. Yeah,
with Diego Luna.
And then obviously Gen V season 2 as well. So the Boys cinematic universe, they became the thing that they swore to destroy, essentially.
Or maybe that wasn't the thing they swore to destroy. Maybe it was the thing that they swore to always make fun of.
Yeah.
And this is the only way that they can.
By doing it.
Right.
So we're going to talk about The Boys season 4. That's going to be our main topic. Before that, we have some news. First and foremost, some news that's very near and dear to both our hearts.
Yes.
Obviously, Gamescom is going on. There were some things. We'll talk about a couple other things, or one other thing that at least that came out of Gamescom in a little bit. But the first one, Backyard Sports is back.
Yeah, you thought the other thing that we were going to talk about was the important one? Nope. It's
Nope.
Backyard Sports.
This, I mean, in the age of nostalgia, this is a series that myself and many others have been praying that would make its way into the modern era for a long time. Was a very popular. I know, PC gaming is much different than it was in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, PC gaming back then is go on your parents' computer in the living room and game.
Yeah,
now
play like a little point and click.
Right. Coolmathgames.com. I just unlocked a lot of core memories for a lot of people.
But now, a lot of people consider PC gaming to be like the peak gaming experience because you can do so many things with mods. It
12 monitors, 18 fans.
Unlocks
G Fuel.
It unlocks so many just so many features of modern games that consoles just aren't powerful enough to, because that's where PCs are at now. Henry Cavill, obviously noted PC gaming enthusiast. But yeah, Backyard Sports was kind of a pinnacle of the early PC gaming iteration. Basically just took a bunch of, original characters and gave them all fun little backstories and put them, you play a season, multiple seasons, endless seasons. Backyard Baseball being the most popular of all the Backyard Sports spin-offs. Obviously there were iterations of Backyard Baseball that came with MLB tie-ins, so you'd have kid versions of Frank Thomas and Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey, mixing it up with these fictional characters, and now Backyard Sports is due for a comeback.
Right.
I hope this comes to consoles, obviously.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, it would be good. I'm a big proponent of this too. When they go about this, don't overcomplicate anything. There's no reason to overcomplicate it. Just refine the graphics, obviously. Have some fun, for lack of a better term, and update it with, a lot of the modern athletes. There's so many modern athletes for whatever sport. I mean, you go football, I think of guys like, your Joe Burrows, your Justin Jeffersons. You go baseball, like your Aaron Judges, your Juan Sotos. You go basketball, I mean, we can talk for days about how many NBA players there are that might want to be in this, but just have some fun. I just think have some fun and bring him back. He's like Thanos. Bring him back.
Yeah, Pablo Sanchez, the greatest fictional athlete of all time.
He's an issue.
Due to return as well. And yeah, I think
you said that like it was like a Marvel movie. Pablo
Sanchez will return. Yeah, I think this is great. Like you said, I don't think you overcomplicate things. I mean, I think NCAA 25 is a great example, or college football 25, I should say, is a great example of like, you know, this dormant franchise, and they just kind of returned with all the features and benefits that people loved, and that game, you know, is doing really, really well. So I think Backyard Sports would do the same. Right.
Yep. I'm in. I'm all the way in. I think it's going to be super, super fun, and I'll be there no matter what. Day one. I'll be there no matter what.
Yeah, same. I'm already in.
How are we doing in college football 25? Who are you playing for?
Clemson.
Clemson.
Yeah.
Little Dabo Sweeney action. Not bad.
Yeah, a little Clemson action at this point.
Nice.
With my road to glory.
Wide receiver. What position?
Running back.
Running back.
Yeah.
Oh, you're old school.
Yeah.
I'm a quarterback because I'm the main character. Taking the Michigan Wolverines all the way this year.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that game's a ton of fun. Madden, not so much.
It's like, what if we sprinkled a little bit of arcadiness to this and didn't say? And that's exactly what college football 25 is.
Yeah, it's can't say enough good things about the game. I'm having a blast with it. I guess we could just talk about the other thing now. I had it moved down, but I don't know why I did it that way.
We're already here.
So Amazon Prime, you know, we talked about Amazon Prime being kind of like the flag bearer for like video game adaptation properties. At least that's how it seems. And they are doing something that I didn't even know they were working on, which is this animated anthology series called Secret Levels. And I'm not entirely sure. I've watched this trailer a couple times and I still don't totally know what it is.
I'm kind of just confused. You know what I mean? Like, but in a good way.
I'm intrigued. Yeah. It's obviously a collaboration with multiple gaming studios.
I wonder what it took to pull that off too, because that in of itself is like, you know, a logistical nightmare.
Oh yeah, you got to negotiate with all these studios, get the rights to their characters and such. So just a couple games that are going to be represented in this thing: Pac-Man, Warhammer, Mega Man. Dungeons and Dragons, you know, / Baldur's Gate is going to be represented. And then, I mean, I guess the ones that everyone's talking about are the inclusions of the PlayStation Studios characters of Kratos and Jin Sakai from Ghost of Tsushima.
My goats. My kings.
And
throw Joel in there.
Yeah, I mean, they said, and many, many more. So it's going to be 15, I guess maybe an episode per franchise is what this seems like, because it says it's going to be 15 stories essentially, kind of like a Tales of the Jedi like anthology series. So I don't know if there's going to be any like overarching plot.
Oh, it's what if?
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be any like overarching plot, or if it's just going to be like this. I don't know. Like I said, like I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's like a Ready Player One sitch where like this kind of avatar, audience surrogate character gets inserted into these video game universes, or if they're like colliding, because there's like a screenshot of Kratos in like a modern day city, which obviously is not his bag. So I don't know.
Says who?
Yet. I guess it'll be. I guess it's not
Kratos
yet.
has to go to like the store.
Yeah, it's going to be animated, so obviously that unlocks a lot of things that you can do, obviously, especially with these characters, and I just am super interested in what it's going to be. It comes out in December. I don't know if it's going to be like an all-at-once sitch, or it's going to be like one a week, or what it is.
I think Amazon's kind of locked into the once a negating Fallout, because I think they knew that they needed the fan base to love Fallout, not only the fan base, the non-fans to love Fallout. So I think they will go week by week. I think that would be cool. And especially from an anthology perspective, like week by week makes a lot of sense. Like sit with this for the week. Next week will be something completely different.
Yeah. And obviously if you're going to do this, I think they haven't announced any casting for this yet. But I would hope if you're going to have these certain characters represented, that you would get the voice talent behind the characters, so I would, if you're going to have Kratos in this, obviously I would give Christopher Judge a call, assuming that these characters are going to have speaking roles. I would hope that they would. Instead of
just silent.
Oh, that would be terrible. If it's a flash sitch, like Kratos is just there, but like he doesn't speak. That would be terrible. Like
why
you can't
is Nicolas Cage back?
You can't do that. But yeah, I'm super, and it's also interesting because Amazon's also doing the God of War series at some point.
Maybe this is a little test.
Maybe, yeah, that's a great point. And then I don't know what I don't think they have a relationship with the Ghost of Tsushima film. I think that's a different thing. So
right,
Yeah, like you said, I mean, just the fact that they pulled this off feels like a logistical nightmare. I mean, it is kind of like Ready Player One in that respect, that you have to get all the licensing and stuff for all these properties. So I'm intrigued at the very least, even though if I don't know what it totally is, I'm keen to see more from it and more details from it. So that was really it from Gamescom as far as, major news. Other than the Indiana Jones game that we talked about months and months ago, is no longer going to be an Xbox exclusive. It will be releasing on PS5 in the springtime, whereas the Xbox version and PC version comes out in September. So a little bit of console exclusivity. We've seen PlayStation do this before with the Final Fantasy series, where they do like an exclusive period and then open it up. So, but I'm super excited for that. As a PS5 owner, I was a little bummed that we would be missing out on this Indiana Jones game with Troy Baker, obviously, voicing Indiana Jones. It's going to be feels like it's going to be very Uncharted, kind of action adventure. And I'm looking forward to being able to play it.
Me too. Especially on that next gen graphic.
Yeah, it looks great.
It's probably going to be insane. So,
moving on, we have a Pacific Rim prequel has been announced via Variety. I think that's exciting. I like that Pacific Rim universe.
Same, yeah. I think it's very fruitful too. But I think it's, the beauty of the Pacific Rim universe is you can kind of take it tonally where you want. Yeah. Like I think there's this funny dichotomy between Pacific 1 and Pacific 2 where it's like one of these seems like it's like a studio movie, and the other one seems like, wait a second, there's some things in here. There's some ideas in here. So you can pick and choose how you want to go about this. This is gonna be weird to say, but obviously you don't need to do the absolute cinema of what Godzilla -1 did, but take some notes and understand like what makes this such a place where you can kind of play a little bit. And I think Godzilla -1 understands that. Funny enough, as much as it's like, these loud, dumb, big Hollywood action movies, like even the Godzilla franchise, like the live action one, they get it. Like they understand and they evolved with the time. Like it's now always going to be the Gareth Edwards, let's just do Cloverfield cinema. Now it's like Kong's riding on the back of Godzilla, fighting another red, ape, fighting an ice monster. Like, who cares?
Yeah, and people love those things. Right. And I think you're right about I think Pacific Rim was always ripe for a prequel, just because story-wise, the first one takes place pretty far into the future of whatever this universe is. Like when you talk about like the Jaeger program is kind of like on the outs.
Yeah, it's been there for so long.
And then they kind of like bring it back to combat a new threat. So you could do a lot of things with it. You could do like the fall of humanity. You could do like the rise of the Jaegers. Like there's so many things that you could do with it.
Right, Chuck Yeager.
John Yeager.
John Yeager. Shout out Idris. Bring Idris Elba back, but have him play his ancestor plays. It's the thing where the ancestor plays the same. It's the same actor.
I don't know how you beat the name though. I don't know how you beat
name?
Stacker Pentecost.
Oh man. It's John Pentecost.
No, it can't be John Pentecost.
Why? It's John Yeager. Why can't it be John Pentecost?
None of them could be John.
John Pentecost changed his name to John Yeager.
That was the funniest things that the God of War devs retroactively did when they technically canonized Kratos' first name as John. And he's John Kratos.
Nothing's ever going to be, I'm John Star Wars.
John Star Wars.
I'm Ray Star Wars. What were they cooking?
I don't know. But, I mean, yeah, I think it's cool. And there was, for the longest time, people were, like, clamoring for, like, a Pacific Rim Godzilla crossover.
I mean, I think if Kong didn't take the place, there was probably a possibility that that could have been a thing. Where instead of it just being Monarch, it was just... Also, go check out the Apple TV Godzilla show with Kurt and Wyatt Russell, because that show is crazy. That show is good.
What's her name is in that? Anna Sawai's in that.
Oh, yeah. Channel favorite.
Yeah. So that's Pacific Rim, and then we have some Star Wars stuff, and it's not good. None of it's good. So both the one Book of Boba Fett hasn't been officially canceled, but Tamira Morrison does not sound very optimistic.
I think he kind of knows. I think he knows that it's like, I think Star Wars is making different moves. I mean, the news is that the Acolyte's been canceled after one season. So the Dark Plagueis reveal and the Yoda reveal are now the funniest things. The Darth Plagueis one is the funniest thing. Because, like, that episode totally was so different, and some figure just started walking out of the shadows, like...
that Newt Gunray?
Is that Newt Gunray from Star Wars?
No, it was Darth Plagueis.
From Star Wars.
From the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Darth Plagueis from the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
I mean, I guess this isn't inherently surprising.
No.
It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate because also that might inform a lot. And I'll even go further with that in a second, just overarching Star Wars, but I think it's bad for the High Republic stuff, especially because now, a lot of people probably aren't going to touch it. There's some people that are probably like, where's the Skywalkers? Like, yeah. I know you guys. you guys know what you like.
And I mean, it's just it's an unfortunate byproduct of like the streaming era where I feel like a lot of these shows they don't get enough room to get off the ground. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if cable TV had taken that approach with like their most popular series, like a lot of like what we think are like beloved shows probably would have fallen by the wayside. Mm-hmm. If they only got like a season to cook and then the networks were just like, nah,
right,
like we're done.
Right. It's unfortunate. I mean, obviously we haven't talked about the show yet. We had, we both have some issues with the show. We weren't the biggest fans of the show. And I mean, to that point about a show needs to, like, if they only got one season, what's the thing that usually gets them past the seasons? It's the characters that you love. You think about these characters and, like, I need to see these people. I need to see more of them. Yep. And that was this show's biggest issue, is that this show just, I don't care about anybody in that show. It's technically good. Looks good. Sounds good. Scores great.
Choreography is incredible.
It's the best lightsaber combat that we've seen. It just is. So to get the character work that you do in that show, it's frustrating. I think that's the best term that I can use. It's like frustrating to see like them not flesh out, but like characters that do, it's just motivations just don't make sense. Like I still don't understand the whole thing with what's his name? With Soul. I still don't fully understand like the whole piece of what he wanted. I mean, I'm not naive and like I get it, but I just don't understand. And I'm a big proponent of like you need to take it as what is instead of what you want because you're not in the writer's room, but it still doesn't make too much sense too.
Yeah, I agree. I just think, and it was it was going back to when we first saw the trailer for it, I said on this podcast, you can go back, I don't know, who knows what episode it was, but you can go back and say, like I said it, like it looks great, but like who am I supposed to attach myself to? Mm-hmm. I'm not feeling a lot of like character work in these trailers, and that was my kind of fear. I was hopeful that the show itself would kind of give us that, but it really never did.
Yeah, it's probably some of the weakest Star Wars protagonists too, with May and Osha, like just never actualized because.
And I also like. Well, I should clarify. Like, not the performances weren't bad.
Yeah, the performances I thought were actually quite good, and I mean. My man from I always forget his name, that was in The Good Place, that plays essentially the villain of the show. He was solid. Like I think he probably was the most interesting character, but
properly menacing too.
Properly menacing because it's like he lulled you to sleep with how charismatic he is, and then he's just like, oh, I can kill any of you if and when I want. So I have no problem with this. But the two of them, it's May and Osha. They're just. I was thinking about this the other day because I was doing some writing, and I really want to ask a question to like a pro screenwriter about like the MacGuffin itself. Like I feel like there needs to be a line between the MacGuffin. Like it's kind of like the ideology. Can a MacGuffin be a person? Because like an ex machina can be a person, but can the MacGuffin itself be a person?
I think so.
But I think there's danger that comes with that.
The creator does that.
Sure, but it's not the main character that does it. Yeah. It's not the main character of the show. That's why I said, like, the main character, not the main character, but there's usually the side character, the wise old sage character, whoever you want to make. It's like, they can be the ex machina, but the MacGuffin being a person is a difficult piece. Yeah. And the creator does what this show doesn't do, because it makes me care about Alfie immediately. Not only, as a character, but lore-wise, it makes me care about Alfie. Like, the show...
Right.
Is predicated on me caring about Osha and May in the same way, probably even more so than the creator did. But they just you're bogging it down too much with all this soul stuff and all this like the lore not being. It feels like there was like contention almost. And like they wait.
I think in my opinion, the show waits way too long to do the reveals. Like they hold all of those reveals almost to, like, the finale, and by the time you get to them, like, you don't get a lot of them to breathe.
Right.
Like, you revisit that moment with the witches so many times, and you kind of get the sense that, like, Soul did it, but, like, you don't get the confirmation until the end of the show, and then he dies.
Right. And then again, man, I can't believe they did that to Coconata, because I believe Coconata even said, like, he's always been a Star Wars fan. I mean, he is a phenomenal filmmaker, and he has the 2 worst episodes of this show. Like, and it's so frustrating, because, like, I love that guy, and his sense of, you know, he has this sense of, like, ambience in his filmmaking too, and this is probably the one show you can use that for. You can use that to the advantage of, like, just letting things breathe, and they just don't know how to do it. They just don't know how to execute it. Like, I kept seeing it, like, I can't believe Coconata did these episodes. Like, it wasn't, I promise you it wasn't him. He directed those 2 episodes. Like, he was probably, it's probably my Chloe Zhao theory for the Eternals.
Yeah. Yeah, 100. Yeah, I would agree with that. And then, you know, as far as the Book of Boba Fett's concerned, I mean, I'm not terribly surprised we're not getting a second season of that. I mean, that show ends, you know, the last 3 episodes are essentially a continuation of The Mandalorian anyway.
And I mean, when we reviewed it, we were, like, stunned. I still cannot believe in a show with one of the most legacy characters in kind of fiction, Boba Fett, that it gets taken over by somebody else, and how do you not show up in your own show for 2 out of the 7 episodes? You're not in the show. That's absurd.
And I feel bad. I mean, I feel bad for Temuera Morrison too, because you could tell. I mean, he has a real attachment and affinity for his role in the Star Wars universe, not just as Boba Fett, obviously, but as Rex, as Jango Fett. So, you know,
as John Star Wars.
John Star Wars. So, you know, I hope that this isn't the end of his tenure in that universe. Like, you know, hopefully he kind of can latch on to, you know, Ahsoka, I guess, now. I don't know if he's going to be in the movie. You know that movie that Filoni's doing? That's, like, the Avengers?
There's no earthly shot you don't get Temuera Morrison to not be in that movie. Like, I see many possible futures, as Paul Atreides would say. I don't see a future where he's not in that movie. As whoever, it's probably going to be Rex.
I don't think he would come back as Boba Fett at this point.
Definitely be Rex.
And then, yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate for him. It's unfortunate for Ming-Na Wen. I really enjoyed her character. So maybe, I don't know, she can pop up maybe in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense, The Mandalorian Grogu. Yeah. Why is that a movie?
I'm just calling it The Mandalorian.
Right. Why is it a movie?
I don't know.
Should have just been season 4 of The Mandalorian.
And then, you know, but also at the same time, like, it's not an Acolyte situation where I feel like Boba's plot was not resolved. I feel like if that was to be the end of it, I think where he ends up kind of makes sense, and we don't necessarily have to see him again.
You know, your approach to that show probably should have been more episodic than overarching. Yeah. The way I was thinking about it, because, like, just do, like, just do the trials and tribulations of him being a crime boss of Mos Eisley. Like, just kind of do it week to week. Probably extend the season 2 more episodes, or 2 to 3 episodes. So instead of 7, you do 9 to 10.
Well, we could talk about that when we talk about The Boys too, because I think that's more of a overarching point with these streaming shows recently. I think, you know, House of the Dragon also kind of suffers from this. A bunch of shows do. Yeah. So we'll talk about that when we talk about The Boys. And then the last thing that we will talk about before we have to talk about The Boys, and it's a doozy. Yeah. So this is this is kind of the final, it may not be the conclusion, but it's at least we're in the final act of the Beau Demayo conspiracy mystery of what happened with between him and Marvel. Obviously, he was let go before the release of X-Men 97 under circumstances by which no one knew for months. He was regularly tweeting about the show, interacting with fans about the show while it aired. So we were like, what? Marvel didn't put any kind of constraint on him to talk about the show. So we were like, what could he have done? There were, you know, rumblings of, you know, people wanting to bring him on, you know, for other things, X-Men related. And we're like, well, let's wait and see. Cause obviously he was fired for some reason. We just don't know what it was. Then there was the thing last week that came out that he was not invited to the, like the X-Men 97 contingent, for the Emmys to accept, if they win an award. He was not invited to go.
Right.
And then he put out some cryptic thing about like, I'm not surprised, but I'm working with Marvel or speaking with Marvel about, something. Mm-hmm. And then the straw that broke the camel's back was essentially he was removed from credit for season 2,
right.
of which we know that he, they confirmed that he wrote season 2,
right.
but his name has been struck from the writer's credits.
Right.
And he then put out a tweet saying basically like it was a retaliation from Marvel because he posted some type of gay pride, thing on mm-hmm. Instagram, and he felt it was retaliatory. And then Marvel was like, all right, it's enough. Like enough is enough. We're going to basically put out the reason you were let go mm-hmm. now. And it was a bunch of really bad stuff, yep. which, I mean, you could have supposed based on everything that happened sure. and how quickly it happened. You had a feeling that it was pretty substantial, and then it turns out it was a lot of sexual misconduct mm-hmm. In terms of like, sending provocative, sexually explicit photos to staff members, yep. Using said sexually explicit photos as potential inspiration for X-Men 97, sexually, abusing staffers and coworkers, using, language that shouldn't be used in the workplace. And then apparently this was also a similar pattern of behavior that he was exhibiting when he was working on The Witcher. And it was never investigated or
right.
looked into.
Yep.
And the Marvel pretty much just like dropped the nuke on him, and yeah. was like, it felt like for whatever reason they felt maybe it was like a contractual thing. Maybe they felt beholden to not put this out there to potentially ruin this guy's career.
Yeah.
And then, he put out that tweet about potentially feeling like he was being removed from season 2 because of some type of gay pride post. And then Marvel was just like, all right, now we gotta you're kind of coming at us, so we gotta come at you now.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what this future holds for him, but right. it doesn't look promising.
Yeah. I mean, the first and very foremost thing that I'll say is like, I feel so bad for anybody that, had to deal with this not alleged, but who had to deal with this sort of, for lack of a better term, like reign that he had, like any staffer that had to, be beholden to whatever he was doing. Like, that's just disgusting. And I'm sorry that they have to deal with anything like that, or, be associated with him in any way after that too. It's not fair. It's just not fair to them. Like, imagine, in Hollywood's such this tough place to get into. Imagine like you work all this time and like, these are the type of people they warn you about. Like yeah. that just could be there. And then, you get on this great project and, it's, this charismatic person's there and it's just like, hey, like, we're going to bring the X-Men back to light. But like,
and a really, all behavior aside, like a really brilliant creative mind.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and somebody that's using, real world experience to really resonate for exactly what the X-Men were. That's, before we knew what he did, like, this is something that we were saying week in, week out, like, his understanding for the X-Men is like almost on like Chris Claremont level of like, we understand exactly what the X-Men are and like the hate they receive for no reason. Like, it's like, we understand, like, I understand all those things. And then just great storytelling on top, like, you're talented on top of that too. So it's, what a waste to, to be the type of person that you are on top of it. It's sickening.
Yeah. And it's just, you just don't have to do it. Like, mm-hmm. you don't have to engage in that behavior. Like, mm-hmm. Obviously we're not wired that way. So like, we right. don't know what goes through a person's mind who engages in behavior mm-hmm. like that. But like, in my mind, man, it's just like, don't
do your job.
Just do your job. Just be there what you're paid to do.
Right.
And like, just, man, it's crazy. And the unfortunate thing too is like, if all this was happening, while he was, and he knew and everyone knew why he was let go, but then at the same time, he's like putting himself on the forefront every week by like live tweeting along with the show.
Right.
Like knowing why he got fired and like kind of putting himself on this pedestal
right.
of like, look at me and like this thing I created, knowing full well like you're never gonna get to do it again.
Right.
So like that also was retroactively very confusing
and a bit selfish as well too.
Yeah, I agree, because the people that he worked with have to. I know a lot of them had been tweeting along with the show. Like a lot of the animators and such had been tweeting along with the show. I think that's really great. But like right. for them to like watch him also do that is just kind of like. It's a little, like you said, it's a little selfish and it's a little like self-grandizing and like a little disgusting right. to like do that, and it's just I can't say we didn't ask for this.
Yeah, sure. And I think about the James Gunn thing of, he was let go at some point, and then we were kind of saying, like, we knew what he did, and then Marvel made a decision, Disney made a decision. They said, like, hey, like, second chances are a thing, redemption's a thing, and somebody made a point about the Robert Downey. It was more of, like, Robert Downey Jr. and then the Jonathan Majors thing. Like, it was something Jonathan Majors was saying a couple weeks ago where he said, like, hey, I'm happy that Robert Downey Jr. is getting his thing, and, like, the TMZ reporter asked him, like, are you upset? He's like, yeah, I'm upset. Like, yeah, this is a sad thing. Like, yeah, this sucks. Like, this was my character, and, like, essentially that was my universe to take. Like, that was my throne to take, and now I'll never have it. But he said, like, in the future, like, maybe, like, I'll get my second chance, just like how Robert Downey Jr. did. But
and I think that's entirely possible, for Jonathan Majors.
Sure.
This one I'm not as sure about.
No. He's Beau Demayo, unfortunately, is,
especially since he's, at the end of the day, like, it sucks as a writer for me to say this, but, like, he's just a writer. Like, he's not an actor. He's not, like, on screen. He's not a director. Like, there's really no reason to, try to take a second chance on him. Like, writers are like a dime a dozen.
I mean, I'll even counter but agree, but I'll say, like, I think great writers are difficult to come by. Like,
100%,
a writer like that, of what we just got, of what we want, like, we were, not just us, I mean, almost everybody was like, well, we know who's going to take the MCU X-Men. Like, we don't have to think about it. It's Beau Demayo. Like, you don't even have to think about it. You have your heir to the throne, essentially. Like, put him with the James Gunn's, Ryan Coogler, Beau, like, and now it's like, I hope he, after this, I hope he never gets anything again. Like, if you really made people feel that way, you shouldn't get anything.
And I know, like, the Robert Downey Jr. point, like, people tried to, like, draw comparisons, and I just don't. A, it's not fair because Robert Downey Jr. was engaging in self-destructive behavior.
Exactly.
And B, it took Robert Downey Jr. a really long time.
Yeah, people just think it was, like, overnight. Like, it was through the 90s, and then up until Zodiac was, like, his first one where he was back. Like, it took up until, like, 2005, 2006.
It took him a really long time for and when we talked about Iron Man in one of our episodes, like, it was really Jon Favreau that pushed and pushed and pushed for, like, Marvel did not want to touch Robert Downey Jr. Like, they didn't want to.
And let's even go further with that. That was a Paramount production. If that was a Disney production, I actually would promise you Robert Downey Jr. wouldn't have been Iron Man if it was Disney that had the reins at that time. Yeah.
So I mean, it took Robert Downey Jr. almost 20 years to get out of that hole, and that was a hole that was wholly obviously, being an addict, being an alcoholic has effects on those around you. Sure. But also, the biggest, ultimately the biggest person that it affects is yourself. So he was engaging in this incredibly self-destructive behavior that, then in turn afflicted everyone around him because of his status, as a major actor,
and then you hop over to the Jonathan Majors situation. Like, that's like physical abuse at that point. So that's like, again, like, Robert Downey, it's self-destructive behavior that ripples outwards, but, like, Jonathan Majors' situation is different because that's physical abuse, and then, which is just never accepted. And then there's Beau Demayo, like, that's sexual abuse, like, just never accepted. Like, unfortunately for Beau Demayo, it's clipped. I don't see him ever working again, like, after this.
And especially, that the similar behavior was also exhibited when he was working on The Witcher.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like he learned a lesson.
It was. I think that one Witcher writer kind of said, like, he's always been like this. Like, on there, it's like he's like almost like victimizing himself to get more. Almost is kind of what he was saying.
Which is kind of how it reads, especially like I said, especially after doing the live tweeting of X-Men 97 and keeping himself as almost like a sympathetic figure, because and people would ask him, like, while he was live tweeting, like, what happened, and he would go, the story will come out or whatever, like, yada yada, and then it did feel like a pattern of, like, this self-sympathy behavior, and then, like I said, eventually, like, when this latest thing happened where he was removed from season 2 credit, and he tried to spin it as retaliation for a gay pride post, and Marvel was just like, enough is enough, essentially. Like, that's really how it felt to me. Like, it really felt like Marvel was withholding this, which is also kind of like shitty on their part, like, that they withheld, because, like, what would happen if they never put this out and he got another job and did the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, in a way, like, it's kind of crappy that Marvel also withheld this from everybody until now. But yeah, they must have felt they were, you know, backed into some type of corner, because I think they also felt like the groundswell of like fans just not trying to bring him back, but like kind of pushing Marvel to like hire him back. And Marvel's like, we can't, but we're not going to tell you why we can't, but we can't.
And like I said, like without the James Gunn thing, I don't think it would have been this many like roars to bring him back. But like you already did that for possibly your most important creator that you've had in that universe singularly, like a singular person to kind of have influence over something.
Yeah.
Like if he never came back, then Beau Demayo, like we would have never even thought about like bringing him back for anything. But now it's like, maybe like again to our, like we kept saying it week in week out, especially after episode 5, we're like, what did he do? Like he understands, he's just a dang good writer. Like what did he do? Like this is like a generational writer that's just being like told no, but now we know, and good riddance, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no really no reason to try and defend it or try and bring him back for anything at this point. Like that was always the conceit that you and I both shared. Like, look, we don't know what he did, and if it's something this severe, like then we don't want him to come back.
Right.
But until we know, we have to recognize the immense talent that is coming together, and then now we know what we know. That's really the end of it, and hopefully there are better angels in that room working X-Men 97 that kind of absorbed, the talent that he did have, and absorbed his kind of, because he obviously still has a love for the X-Men. I mean, that can't be disputed. So hopefully, the better angels in that room absorbed all of that and can keep that quality up,
Sure.
with him not being there.
Yeah.
Which I think is entirely possible. Like, I think that it wasn't just him. Obviously, that
there's people. It's a writer's room. It's not just one person writing the whole thing.
Yeah. So I still have high hopes for it. For season 2 and beyond of that show.
I just hope ultimately, like, and this is the thing. This is the thing that always comes from this. Like, is the black cloud going to reign over this show permanently? And this, and I said it, and I will keep saying, this is a top 3 project Marvel has ever done in the MCU. Like, top 3, maybe not even 2 or 3. Like, this is one of the greatest things that they have ever done, and now it's gonna have something over it. It's gonna have the asterisk next to it until the end of time, unfortunately, and that's the true fear, especially going into like a season 3. Like, man, like I wish they didn't have to worry about something like this, because like you would just want the show to be great, and like especially the modern age of Marvel, like of course something happened. Like of course there has to be something with this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true that we kind of talked in the past how they've been kind of snake bitten since Endgame with a variety of things, So yeah, I totally agree. But let's pivot. Let's pivot and talk about the boys. Pivot. Let's talk about the boys and the mid to end of season 4, because obviously we talked about the first 3 already, so you can go back and listen to that. So I mean, the point I was going to make earlier about the streaming thing, like I think we're at a point where like I think these studios just either need to I think they need to open it up a little bit. I think the 8-episode model is becoming a little antiquated at this point. I think this show I don't think the show suffers from it as much as other shows, but I think it still suffers from it.
Yeah. I'm like 50-50 on that point. The only reason I'm 50-50 is because a show with this material is it needs to be like shot. You know what I mean? Like it can't be like long form for something like this. And like I'm gonna get to a point about how my brain's just desensitized at this point, because I rewatched. Remember I was rewatching the whole show before season 4 came out, and like I'll never forget what was the first big thing. Obviously the Robin thing is like, what the, and then you're like, you keep watching because you were so used to one thing. You're used to like one way of making superhero content, and then you get that and you're like, what the, like what's happening? Like I'm watching season 4, and season 4 has some of the worst things that The Boys has ever done. It might have 2 of the absolute worst things that this show has ever done. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
this is normal.
That's
like,
a great point.
But like, still to that point, like, I think something with like that much graphic nature to it it can't be longer than this. I don't think it needs to be any longer than this. I think it's and none of the other seasons have suffered from this. So I can't sit here and be like, well, it needs to be like season 3 is the best season in this show. I think we can both agree on, like, season 3 didn't have a problem with this.
I guess the only difference between, say, a season 3 and this is it feels like, it does feel like a little bit like this season more than the others felt more wheel spinny than the others, in terms of, you know, how many times are we going to get to the doorstep of them getting rid of Homelander and then he just gets away again.
Well,
until because, you know, I think kind of one of the, not mistakes that Eric Kripke made, but he had always said from the beginning that this was like a 5-season thing, and then he reneged on it slightly, and then it was kind of like a joke. He was like, "Nah, I'm kidding. Like it's five seasons." So like I feel like season 4 was always going to be the one that kind of suffered, like just from the jump, just naturally. I mean, the
penultimates are tough.
Like when you know what the end destination is, like it's kind of hard not to look to the end destination.
Yeah, we talked about it with Game of Thrones. Like one of the most difficult things you have to do is set up is probably in writing terms, like, because I was listening to Mason talk about it on his podcast. He was like, the setup is so difficult because like I was listening to the Script Apart podcast, and I think I was listening to Fallout, and he said, like, one of the writers for Fallout said, like, when you're writing, like, and you know you have what you want, just write what you want and worry about the setup later. Like, don't worry about the setup now, just get to the point where you want. So, like, if the whole season is the point of the setup, that's where your difficulty comes in, where you're like, how do I structure this? Like, what do I give? What do I take? Yeah.
They just did it with House of the Dragon, too. Yep. House of the Dragon just did this, where, you know, one of the complaints of season 2 was that it felt like a setup for season 3. And I think, you know, and we talked about it when we talked about that in that podcast, like, I think that show, even though a lot of it was set up for season 3, still set up individual arcs for season 2 that paid off in the finale, which made the finale retroactively make sense. Whereas, like, in The Boys, nobody's arc starts in this season and ends conclusively in the season, except maybe Butcher. Like, Butcher gets a little bit more kind of additive to, like, his character, whereas, like, all the other characters besides, I mean, A-Train obviously too, but all the other characters kind of stay roughly the same, and nobody really gets a definitive conclusion to their season 4 arc unless they were killed, obviously.
And unfortunately, there's a big offender which hurts this for, and it's Huey. Like,
yes,
we unfortunately
100%.
lost our POV character. He was us. He was the one, and that's my thing about maybe this was intentional, to my point about, like, me not resonating with, like, the gore anymore and the graphic nature,
because Huey's also desensitized,
and they actually make the point about it. So maybe that was the point, and maybe I can actually give them credit, and maybe I just thought about this, and then they're gonna be like, you're right.
You're right on.
We did think about this. Wink, wink. We did always think about this, but like on a serious note, like, spoilers, I guess, but
yeah,
when Huey was talking, like, right before Butcher walks in and murders Newman, like, Huey talked about it. He's like, guys, we need to find a good way to do this. Like, when it's like the Last of Us Part 2 thing, like, we need to end this cycle of violence. And then Butcher immediately is like, absolutely not. This is not how this world works. And Huey's just standing there. Each season, like, again, Huey's covered in blood. Each season there's purpose to that. Like, he doesn't feel it anymore. He's just like, I'm numb. Like, I don't, like, I have no feeling left anymore.
Especially a character that, you know, in Newman, that Huey had, like, some type of relationship with too, and he, even still, like, you know, obviously he's shocked,
right?
But sure. he's not like, oh my god, like, what the hell did you do? Like, it just, like, no one tries to stop him.
Yeah.
Like, he just, I mean, I don't know how you do stop him.
Right. But like I said, and like that's more for like a, you know, thematically and tonally for the show. I'm talking more like character-wise for the show. Like, you lost your main character. Like, you essentially lost the person that we have been following this whole time with purpose, even down to season 3. Like, to see how minuscule, and like, you look season to season. Like, season 1 is like that shock factor of like, now you're getting dropped into this world and like finally you get to see the veil. Versus season 2 is like, all right, we're going to try a different way. And then season 2 is more, you're never getting out of this. Like, you can't escape this. You're in it now. Like, you can't. Season 3 is more of like, I need the power that they have. Like, I need it. Like, I'm nothing. And like, my girlfriend's in the 7, like, I have the most powerful man on the planet wanting me dead. Like, I need power myself. And then you get to season 4 and it's like, you lost all the things that was pulling Huey along, and then pulling the plot along.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest things that happened. I mean, unfortunately, the arc with his dad kind of gets lost in the shuffle because it happens in episode 4 and 5 essentially.
Which is funny because that's probably one of the most beautiful pieces of the entire show.
Like, I feel like maybe you could have pushed that plot a little further to the end of the season that way, because a lot of stuff happens between when Hugh's father dies to the end of the season. So like by the time you get, and like, you know, it kind of like Huey gets a lot of like a lot of stuff happens to him, but I feel like it happens in such quick succession that you're just like, you're almost like kind of your point, like you're kind of desensitized to it. Like what happens to him in the Tech Knight episode is horrifying.
Like I said, like Herogasm on paper is the worst thing that show has done. It's Herogasm. Yeah. Herogasm probably does not even come close to what they did to Huey in that last episode. I mean, Huey was sexually assaulted multiple times this season, and again, taking him out of the main character spot makes it like, oh well, like that's actually how they kind of play it for Huey. And like, we'll talk about the Starlight thing of like, from like a writing lens of like, wow, like, obviously this whole universe is supposed to be where like people aren't like, but Annie's supposed to be like, that's why they work so well together. Like Huey's supposed to be the good out of like the normal people. Starlight's supposed to be the good out of the soups, and like Annie being like, Huey's just assaulted, and Annie's just like, wow, I can't believe you were with her. And I'm like, he was just assaulted. Like he thought it was you. Like why would he not think it was you?
Yeah, that whole thing I didn't really resonate with or really understand it, especially like you said, like her character to this point had never been that person,
right? So
I don't know if it's like part of her like story, you know, as far as like she was you know, pushed to the brink this season with the whole firecracker thing and the abortion angle, like having her public or her private business like thrown out in public. So that could have been part of it, but like at the same time, like when you're talking about whether it's a book or a TV show, like at a certain point, like, yeah, you're supposed to make some suppositions as a viewer or a reader, but at the same time, like the show or book also has to kind of give you a little bit, you know, into they do have to do some legwork and give you why a character is reacting a certain way instead of you just kind of supposing it. And then, you know,
it felt very like sitcom-y like that.
Yeah.
And it was such a small beat that like it lasted for like 20 minutes in the episode, and then she was just like, all right, we regress back to the mean. But it was like, why are we even thinking about this right now?
Yeah.
And also in a finale, why are we thinking about this?
And the age of you know, accessibility and technology that we're in, where these writers and these showrunners can hop on Twitter like the minute after the episode ends and goes, no, this was actually our intention. Like I feel like that's given them cause to be a little bit lazy in the actual delivery. Like, you know, notorious awful human being J.K. Rowling was like the biggest offender of this. As the Harry Potter books came out, and then, you know, as we got into the age of the internet, like she would retroactively like add lore like to the Harry Potter stories, like, you know, the whole Dumbledore being gay thing. Like she was like, no, actually that's true. But like put that in the story then instead of telling us retroactively. And I feel like the age that we're in now with the internet, like Kripke does this all the time with the boys, where he's like, well, he did it with the Huey thing when he was like, no, actually that was the point, was to drop, like, you know, do it for not a laugh, but do it, you know, make it not as, you know, make the characters not react as strongly as you feel like they should have. But like I shouldn't need you coming out and telling me these things for me to absorb it. It's almost like DLC for a TV show when like a character, when like a, you know, that's you know, video games suffer from like the DLC problem where like, no, we're actually going to give you a $20 expansion that enhances the story. I'm like, well, why do you, like, this was 30 years ago, you would have just given me that. Now it's like the same thing with like TV shows, like, well, I can write a plot hole into my story, but like, because, you know, 5 minutes after the episode airs, I can hop on Twitter and explain my plot hole. Like that, you should just fill the plot hole to begin with.
Right. This season, okay, let's get it out of the way. This season's woke.
This is the most,
This is the most...
It's the most heavy-handed. It's the most heavy-handed it's been with it.
The jokes on my side, this is woke. This season's woke. Is this play about us? Like, yeah.
This is the most overt the show's been.
Yeah, on a serious note, this is the most real world informed season that they've had so far, and on purpose, very, very much on purpose, down to actual dates of actual key events in U.S. history. I said U.S. history as if this wasn't in the last 4 years, but
as if it wasn't 3 years ago. Right.
Yeah, but U.S. history like taking place, like this is actualities of the entire of the
so
world.
much so that they had to change the episode title of the finale because of real world events that transpired literally the weekend before the finale came
that was
out.
crazy. Not only the boys, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but Captain America: Brave New World also had to change some things. While the trailer was in theaters, they had to change some things. So, this season is woke.
Yeah,
it's woke. Just kidding. It's not, because that's not a real thing. Sorry if I offended anybody. Woke is not a real thing, but. This season is the most informed. This season is the most. It takes direct comparison from overthrowing a government. Let's see what the USA has done in the last 4 years. Hey, I need like the montage music. Overthrow a government. Storm the Capitol. What else do we have?
I mean, we have the whole, pro-life, pro-choice.
Yep.
Issue becoming a political thing.
Right.
You have the inflammatory, via the firecracker character, you have the inflammatory media personality who doesn't 100% believe the things that she's spewing, but does it because the viewers are easily manipulatable.
Right. Stealing an election.
Yeah. Assassinating a president.
It's almost like the show is... Wait, is this show trying to talk about what actually is happening?
Yeah.
How dare they do that?
Yeah.
How dare the show that's always been about that since season 1 try to do that?
Yeah. And I mean, the only difference between this season and the other seasons is they're so close now to the real world stuff. To the sense that like I'm
going to hold any sort of my political affiliation or thoughts on that because that was the point.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not... let me rephrase. It's not the point. It's just very weird that we got there and we were talking about a television show.
Right. Yeah.
That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's like the point being like now it feels like and I think I forget who it was. It might have been Anthony Starr who mentioned this, that like they wouldn't...
Are you talking about his relationship with Metro Boomin?
They wouldn't be able to do what they do if the real world inspiration wasn't so insane, to the sense that like we shouldn't have to draw from all these insane things because these insane things shouldn't be happening, but they are. So why wouldn't we draw on them? Like the real world has become the universe that they established. And
people are acting like this is some grand revelation and this grand woke This has been happening since season 1 of this show. Since the first 5 minutes of this show, it's been happening like that.
Yeah.
The corporatization of, public figures. Like, we know some public figures, some actors that are like, push this person for any little last thing that you can get. Like, no matter what they've done, what they've said, Mark Wahlberg, no matter what they've happened, like, they're going to be pushed for things. Like, that's the point. Like, it's like... I don't know, the Stormfront thing that's a big one. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but there were Nazis marching in the streets in the last 8 years of this country. Like, that's real. That's like, these are real things that like, I don't know why this season was the one where people's brains turned on and they were like, oh no, like...
I mean, even going down to like obviously Homelander is an analog to Donald Trump, right. But like, obviously, stepping outside that, like... public, these public famous figures being used for political means. Like Hulk Hogan was just speaking at the Republican National Convention. Like that, that's the same thing as Homelander standing behind the president at the end of the season. Like it's the same thing. Like, he doesn't have, I mean, he has power, but Homelander shouldn't have any political sway, but he does because he's a notable figure. Like and that's like the populist nature of that universe and this one in the sense that like these people who have no business being in the business that they're meddling in are there because of their notoriety.
Right.
And that's exactly what the show is commentating on. Like Homelander shouldn't be anywhere near the White House, but he is because A, he's physically the most powerful person in the world, but B, he's the most famous person in the world.
And that's the point. Like Homelander's on every t-shirt. There's places named after Homelander. Homelander's taught at schools. Like all those things. Like this is real. This is real stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I
can't believe The Boys is woke. Always was.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the probably the only difference is how close to everything that they're that they're satirizing is happening.
But again, you just made the absence one of the best points you've ever made on here. I can't imagine that we got that close. How did we, as like a people of this country, get that close to that? Mm-hmm. It's not like they're pulling this stuff out of... This stuff actually, real life happened.
Yeah, exactly.
In the last 4 years.
And that's the thing that makes people angry, is they feel like it's politicizing it. Like,
shut up. You watch Star Wars. Shut up. That's all what Star Wars had ever been about since the beginning. If you liked Andor and you want to make that point, I hope you know that. I hope you know what Andor was talking about. I hope you exactly know exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only difference between Andor and The Boys is, I think
Andor's in space, so it's make believe,
and The Boys is satire.
Exactly.
Like the Boys is satirization. So like the nature of satirization is, we're going to directly reference this thing that we're satirizing, because that's what makes it satire. So like if you storm the Capitol, we're going to put a storm the Capitol bit in our show, because it's a satire. Like we have to, the Boys is not the place for metaphor.
Right. Like you got to hit me in the face with it. Like that's the point.
That's the nature of satire.
Right.
Like they're going to use the phrases and language that is used in real life,
right,
to get their point across.
Like the V-52, like we just had D-23 last week. Like the V-52, like this is the most expensive reshoots that we've ever had on this thing. Like we're like, this is like phase 28. Like we're going through that stuff right now. Like we're gonna be in phase 7 in like 3 years for this. Yeah. Like this is not. They're not pulling this stuff out of thin air.
Yeah, and that's the other, and I mean that's the other part of it too. Like you're only mad at the satire. You're only mad at the political satire. You're not mad at the other satire, because you're faced with your own self conscience, being forced to watch the political satire, because you're being made fun of.
Yeah, and you're realizing how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, like they're like, this is over the top. Like no, it isn't.
They've always been this. This actually might, if I'm being honest, this actually might have been more tamed. It's just the fact that this was happening in the real world that it feels like. You don't think the stuff of like, let's go to Vaultland and get a Vault shake, like that's over exaggerated. Like all those things are over exaggerating. Like doing like a pageant circuit. Like this stuff is like
happening.
It's happening. It's just the fact that now it's in a political realm of things that actually happen in the real world.
And things that are actually said.
Right.
I mean, they throw out all those keywords, and it's just, it's just because it's coming from characters that you perceive as villainous, you think that it's too on the nose, but like you're the villain. Like that, maybe hopefully that's what people are getting out of this, is like the reason the villainous characters are saying all the things that you're saying in your real life is because they're horrible things that you're saying. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's what it comes down to. Like you're the villain now, Flash.
Like you're right. Like Stormfront being a Nazi, I guess isn't too bad to some people, but Nazis down the street, that's fine.
Yeah,
it's cool. Stormfront Nazi bad in show, Nazi down street of my hometown good.
Well, and that's where season 4 succeeds, is it takes the mask off of that and removes the delineation. Like it removes the word Nazi from the equation, and because I think that word is so inflammatory that like I would never be that, because there's like this association with that obviously carries a certain figure. It carries a certain figurehead. It carries a certain image of what you think that is. So you take that word out of it and you just keep the behavior of that, and that's when people get uncomfortable, because you're like, wait.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, hold on a second. Like you took the word out of it, but like the behavior's still there. So now I'm uncomfortable, because I can't be that. Right. That is evil.
And also, and I'll even go further. Not only is it like bad and evil, it's like, but this is my entertainment. Why is this bleeding into why is my entertainment talking to me?
Because that's the only way you people learn anymore. is unfortunately, like, the entertainment is more of the real world news delivery system than the actual news, because the news itself has become a parody and a satire.
I'm actually going to use that Star Wars point to the end of my life now, because what do you think Star Wars is? What do you think it is? You think it's just this nice guy, Luke Skywalker, that's such this shit? No. They are the freedom fighters that you so desperately hope never come to power. That's if anybody are ever to watch Andor and then be like, yeah, you know what? The boys is... I'm like, poof, you missed the whole show.
Yeah.
You missed the...
And it's just because Andor is not using the terminology. Like, they're not overtly ripping from the headlines that, like, The Boys is. But, again, The Boys is satire, so it's supposed to do that. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, again, that just makes people uncomfortable. I think that's ultimately where it comes down to. They're not offended. They're just uncomfortable with the reality of their belief system being, A, ridiculed, and B, being represented by a villainous faction. They just don't like that because they don't see themselves as the villains.
Right.
But, you know.
Let's talk about Frenchie. No, I'm kidding. Let's talk about the nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
What's the show? What's the season about?
Butcher's dying.
Yeah, Butcher's dying.
Until he's not.
R.I.P. Butcher. You're a real one. I know a crumpet hates to see you coming.
Ryan coming to terms with his superheroism.
Yeah, I mean, let's approach this like House of the Dragon. Let's go faction to faction. So let's talk about the boys first. Let's talk about where the boys are. So the boys have one plan, and this is a big piece of why season 3 was so good, and it's the understanding of like, oh shoot, like Newman is like she's a proper dangerous villain. Like that's great job by that show for like making her like, and not only just on like a power front, but also like on a political front of like, my face is so marketable and I can go out to all these crowds and they'll cheer me on and love me. And also I can murder everybody in this room if I want to. Like, she's equally as dangerous as Homelander is. Like, she truthfully is. So she probably had one of the best arcs of the show that you've had so far too. So, the boys themselves. So you go to Huey,
who we kind of talked about
we
already.
already touched on, Mother's Milk, MM.
Having an identity and anxiety crisis.
Yeah, you know who he's kind of playing as? He's kind of playing as Dig a little bit in Arrow. That's kind of how I think. Come on, man. Not like that.
Come on, man.
No,
what do you mean by that?
No. No, I thought it was going to be you this week. It was me.
You know who he kind of reminds me of? He kind of reminds me of Iron Man 3 era Tony Stark, where he was just like, I'm out. I'm out of it. I'm out. I can't handle this. I have too much trauma. Like, I'm out. I'm out of this. I'm out of the game. I'm out of the game until I'm back in the game.
Well, it's like, just physically what his arc is that he's now the leader of the boys. He's in charge. You're large in his charge. And nobody's having it. Nobody's following his orders. He's trying to approach this like a commanding officer. And he's again, I've said it for like 3 weeks in a row. He's too noble. He just is. He's too noble, and Butcher makes and you know what I like too? It's not even Butcher that makes the point. It's MM himself that makes the point. He's like, I can't do this. Like, they listen to you because you understand the tough call needs to be made.
You're willing to go places that I'm not willing to go.
Right. And I can't, and you can, so you need to lead it.
But they also don't want Butcher in charge.
Yeah, right. Annie specifically hates Butcher. They were arguing all season, like an old married couple. Much to Huey's chagrin. That's my brother figure and my girlfriend figure. They don't like each other. No good. So you have Butcher dying. Sucks.
Dying and being, you know, he's got the angel and the devil on his shoulder in the form of Becca and whatever his name.
Kessler.
There you go.
His old mate comes back, Joe Kessler.
Yeah, the biggest non-plot twist in the history of television. Kessler's imaginary.
Right. What? He's what?
And Butcher gets venom powers.
Yeah. That's it. No, truthfully, Butcher's whole arc this season it's Ryan. He's trying to save Ryan, and he's trying to be good. Like, he's trying to be like, all right, Ryan, listen, man, don't be your dad. Don't murder heaps of people. You can help somebody. And then I want to touch on Ryan a little bit too, but how do you feel about Butcher this season?
I think they are finally positioning him where he should have been, which is he's going to be a tertiary antagonist next season. Mm-hmm.
He's not the good guy.
He's never been the good guy.
He's never been the good guy, and that's the point. And that's, again, why it was so important that Huey be the main character of this show, because once you get to Butcher, once you get to Homelander, like, you see, like, I'm truthfully powerless to people like
They're two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
Is what I think Season 5 is setting up, that Butcher and Homelander are two sides of the same coin. Their ends justify their own personal means, but they don't justify the means to the ends of everyone else around them.
Right, and that's what brings about Ryan, and that's the whole thing for Ryan, which I think is super interesting, and I'm glad we still don't know, and I think that's good. We still don't know. Like, that's a reveal you can keep it for a little bit, because then the shock factor of which way it goes is going to be, it'd be so much easier for him to go with Butcher next season and be like, you know what, I'm a good kid. I am a good kid. My mom raised me right. It would be infinitely more interesting if he's like, nope, I am my dad. Like, I am gonna hold the stranglehold over and then Butcher's gonna be forced to make a decision, which is probably gonna be to kill Ryan next season.
Or Ryan's gonna be the one that makes the decision. Whether, I think they might be positioning him to be in a position where his decision isn't a binary one. Mm-hmm. Where he's not taking, he's not either taking the path to light or the path to darkness. He's going to end up taking the path to the twilight. He's
just sort of like a bipartisan character in of itself.
He's going to take the path of the in-between where, like, he's going to eventually see Butcher for the monster that he's become. Mm-hmm. And, you have to wonder what that's going to do to him.
Right.
Like, he's been kind of learning this entire time, like, the kind of monster that Homelander is, but, like, what happens when he finds out that Butcher has also become the monster?
Yeah, not only like emotionally and mentally, physically, he's become a monster, and that's the whole point. He is Venom now. We are Venom. We are Butcher.
Yeah, they gave him Venom powers, which makes sense.
Yeah, I'm actually cool with it. I know some people weren't happy. I was like, it makes
more sense than giving him Homelander powers.
Exactly, because it would be too easy. It'd be way too easy just to do that, and we already did it. This is like a different way, and I love the parasitic nature of it too. Like, I think that's very interesting, which would have made it better if Huey was still the main character, because that's what Huey was to him for a lot. Huey was the one, just like his brother Lenny, that was kind of prodded with him the whole time and patted on the back and bought with him the whole time. Take your little brother with you. Aw.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Who else we got?
Frenchie and
Kimiko.
Again, we talked about this in episode 3. I was like hoping that this subplot ended up going somewhere, and it did. Kinda, but it wasn't the most compelling thing.
Yeah, it
got compelling at the end when he gets abducted and she screams for him. Like, that was an impactful moment for sure.
Oh, this show's finale was one of the best finales of. This is a really great episode. The finale of television. This was probably one of the better finales that I've seen. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a non-starter as well, because we already know that Frenchie has a Reddit in his ledger. We already know this. Like, we don't, there's no new ground being treaded for him.
Yeah.
Like, he's murdered. And I remember I texted you. I was like, you know why I love season 1? Season 1's raw. Season 1, it's got this raw edge to season 1. And it was when Frenchie was telling Huey about the first time he had, like, done a contract kill. And he talks about, like, a woman walks onto the elevator and, like, he was describing her, and he's like, what happened to the woman? He's like, no, that was the first person that I'd ever killed. Like, that juxtaposed to the Colin stuff, it's like, again, it's like I'm desensitized. I'm like, I know he's a POS. Like, I know he's done really crappy things.
And we know that this extraneous character, Colin, is not going to become a main player.
So, if they would have made it where, like, Colin's family was, like, instead of them just being a judge to little Nina, because, like, again, okay, like, fine. That already happened. Like, if this was a little bit more of, like, a charged sense of, like, they were a judge on the Homelander trial or something like that, then it would have been like, oh, okay, this is actually something now. But, like, again, nothing's new. Like, okay, like, you're doing this to put a little contention in between Kimiko and Frenchie, but they've always had that. They've always had the will they won't they. Just pick one. Like, you can pick one and be on with it. And
you don't need to drive more tension, ratchet up more tension in that relationship.
Because it's not the fact of the will they, won't they. It's just the fact that they're with each other. They're always with each other. So, like, her scream at the end always would have resonated. It would have always been, I always would have felt something.
Yes.
Even if you did this after season 1, I would have felt something.
Yep, 100%. And then Starlight, obviously.
Yeah, one of the biggest pieces to this. Yep.
She gets the Spider-Man 2 problem. Mm-hmm. That's what happens to her. Yep. And then she gets her groove back at the end of the season.
The Wolverine's over 40 all the time. It's okay.
She flies now?
Mm-hmm. She flies now.
Out of all of them, I think I liked her arc the most.
She has the most dynamic arc and the most compelling one out of everybody.
Especially, like, when she has her action items, and I really resonated with. Like, when she pummels Firecracker, I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like, good. Like, I was really happy with that. When she fights the Deep, like, that was really good, too.
Finally, like, let your hands go. It's fine. Like, it's...
Be Starlight.
You know what it is? it's like the Lucy McLean from Fallout thing. Like, you're in this now. Like, you're not this good, wholesome person. Like, and you don't have to be this good. You're still a good person, but that doesn't mean you have to be a nice person. Like, you're allowed to let your hand. Like, look at what they've done to you over how many years? Look at what they've done to you.
Yep.
Beat the living daylights out of them, and everybody will be fine with it too.
Yep.
Like I said, the only piece, and this isn't really like like an arcing piece. It's just a little character bit, which is just super frustrating. It's like after the big piece, and there's a shapeshifter. So obviously, we're going to talk about Sister Sage in a little bit. We don't know what she is still.
Right.
Maybe she's too smart for us too, because I still don't know what she is. I think this is a game to her, though. I think this is all like one big giant like game of Monopoly that she's playing. That she's like, that's how like cynical and sociopathic she is. She's just like, I don't really care what happens. I don't care if I die. I'm just having a bit of fun. And like, look of what one genius's little bit of fun can do to the entire world. Like, actually destabilize the entire world. But for Starlight, like, it's just that bit where like the shapeshifter obviously shifts into Annie. Her and Huey, are together, and then Annie's like, how dare you, like, no, Huey was just assaulted, but it's fine. How did you not know it was me? It's like, because you guys look exactly the same, because that's the power set that they have.
And then he did figure it out, and he does explain to her, like, how I knew, and then he does this, like you kind of said, it is kind of like sitcom-y, where, like, he brings up, like, all the benign things about her that, like, only he would know, so it's kind of like a cutesy, like, aw, but, like, you didn't need it. Like, their relationship is so rock solid that, like, I'm not watching The Boys for the Annie Huey tension. Right.
Not anymore. Like we've already done that. We've already been through that.
Yeah, we're getting to the end here. Like we only have one season left. Right. I don't let them be together. Let them be strong together.
Yeah, because then if one of them dies, which I thought Annie was going to die this season. Like if one of them ends up dying, then it's going to hurt so much more. Like I don't need. Again, it's the whole Kimiko and Frenchie thing. Like. You take Frenchie away, like, I still would have felt the same way after season 1 and 2 that I had felt after right now. Like, I didn't need anything from the last 2 to 3 seasons from this.
Yeah. And then before we get to the 7, I guess we can talk about, like, we can just talk about Newman. Mm-hmm. She finally gets hers. She gets her comeuppance. She gets ripped in half.
Right.
After appearing to she was going to side with the good guys. Yeah. And Butcher was like, nah. Yeah. Absolutely not.
All right. So the big piece for Newman is Robert Singer. Shout out Supernatural. Robert Singer is the president. It's election time. This whole season is around the election. And then Robert Singer wins. He wins. And the whole plot and plan is that we're going to overthrow the government on January 6th. We're going to overthrow the government. Wait, is this play about us?
That's the president of the government you're talking about.
If you're not trying to reference Fallout, you shouldn't be referencing anything. The show's great.
And then Singer is retroactively also trying to get Newman killed because he knows that
he's working with the CIA. He's with MM, and he's like
the CIA assassinating a political person.
What? They would never do anything like that, Martin Luther King Jr. They would never do anything like that. Why would they ever do that, Malcolm X? Why would they ever think about doing anything like that? Anyway, I probably shouldn't have said that on here.
It's fine. You said they wouldn't do it.
Oh, right. Because they wouldn't.
Right.
They would never do something like that.
And so Singer understands that he's operating on a ticking time clock, that as soon as he wins, Newman's probably going to try and kill him.
Right.
And that's exactly what they are trying to do.
Yeah, she's properly menacing this season. She is properly like, the best thing that they do is it's the Thanos thing. Within the first 5 minutes of the first episode, they put a gun to her head, bullet ricochets right off her head, because we didn't know that before. We didn't know that she was invulnerable before. And then Huey throws acid in her face. She's like, you ruined my goddamn suit, and I gotta go on in 5 minutes. We just won Georgia, I gotta go on. And you're like, and like the viewer's like, oh shoot, like she can't die? The question mark? I thought she can die.
Yeah. So, and turns out she can die.
I have questions about that, but I'll save it, I guess, for once we get down there. But yeah, so I love that heart-to-heart that she has with Huey as well, too, where he was just like, why'd you lie? Like, why'd you... And that's a big piece for a character, like, why are you lying about who you are? Like,
Homelander confronts her on it, too.
Like, why are you running away? It's like, I know why you're running away. it's because you know that Daddy Edgar has all the power. And she spits it right back in your face. It's like, who are you talking to me about him having all the power? Until he shows back up. My man.
I mean, that really goes back to like the core difference between Huey and Homelander is like Homelander doesn't give Newman a choice because he's unhinged, and eventually he's just like, just tell the world that you're soup, and then he does it in front of everyone,
right?
And that's what makes Newman. It doesn't make Newman realize that Homelander's unhinged, but it's like it's the final nail in the coffin of like, all right, Homelander actually is more dangerous than I thought,
correct?
Because he just doesn't care anymore,
right?
Like he doesn't care about his public perception anymore.
Yep. Who else do we got? We already talked Ryan. We talked Newman.
Guess we just go to the 7.
Yeah. Let's go to the 7. Let's start at the bottom of the 7, which is the deepest part. The deep.
I guess we could just do Deep and Noir because they were like a buddy.
They were like a buddy cop duo.
Buddy cop duo. New Noir.
Yeah.
Who's also old Noir.
Yeah,
which is pretty fun.
It's the actor that played Noir.
Finally got some stuff to do.
Right. Once a Godolkin.
He was hilarious.
Yeah, he was funny.
He was very funny.
Narcoleptic.
Can fly.
He flies now?
The actual actor apparently also a narcoleptic.
Yeah. They said I think there's videos of him falling asleep on set, and they'll roll up to him and be like, "Dude,
that's fantastic."
I think that's great.
I mean, they are relegated to. I mean, the Deep was always relegated to this, but both of them are relegated to like goofy henchman 1 and 2 role. Essentially now, like neither of them are like inherently dangerous. Noir's dangerous.
Yeah, and, the Deep's not dangerous.
I don't think he's as dangerous as like any other soup.
Right, he's just a bumbling idiot still. So it's fine.
And I did like the kind of like when they're doing that fight in the office, like I do like that they kind of relegated back to like the season 1 mindset of like we don't know how to kill him. Like remember like season 1 they had to have like exact plans on how to like kill all of them, like translucent, like you needed a specific way to kill him. Like you almost again like to the desensitization point, like you kind of forget that like no, you kind of got to come at all these guys a unique way, right? Like you can't just, I mean, maybe not now with Butcher being able to do what he can do. I
still have questions, but
but like I did kind of like that where like they get the Deep like down and they're like, do you know how to kill him? Because I sure don't.
Yeah,
like. And Noir can fly, so he's going to be back soon.
And he's invulnerable on top of that, too.
So like, I did kind of like that they kind of brought that back. But like I said, those two characters are kind of relegated to like henchmen 1 and 2.
Right.
They're like the muscle. Yeah. Bebop and Rocksteady.
Exactly. Who are the new members of the 7? We'll save Sage for very, very last. Firecracker.
She's Alex Jones with breasts. It's pretty much.
That's going to do it for another episode.
That's pretty much what's going on there.
She's an incel.
Yep. They find her at like a conspiracy convention. She's like a podcaster, podcast radio host.
Right.
And yeah, she's a horrible human.
Yeah, she sucks. But
she's got hands.
She does a little bit.
Not as much hands.
Yeah, she gets thrown around quite a bit. But
don't totally know what she can just punch.
Well, she's got it's like the firecracker.
Oh, she's got Jubilee powers.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. Right.
I forgot she has Jubilee powers.
She's Firecracker from the Boys comics, Robert. She's actually not, because she's an original character.
Yeah, she's got Jubilee powers.
Right. Who else we got?
But she also has that, she has the self-awareness to be like, I believe some of what I say.
That's what I wanted to get to. I wanted to talk about, like, she's like a really bad person that's just spewing nonsense. Because that doesn't happen. But they gave her a little bit of a backstory.
They did give her a little bit of backstory, which I was surprised by.
And it was pretty dang good.
And I was like, wait. I kind of feel bad for her a little bit. Like, she got hilariously mistreated by young Starlight.
Yeah, and and it was a great piece to add on to Starlight's story. Like, again, to inform this universe, like, nobody's inherently good or bad. Like,
and it also informs Firecracker a little bit when Starlight was like, I change. I'm a changed person. And Firecracker's like, no, you're not. People don't change.
Right.
And I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
Kind of like informs like her worldview.
Right.
Of like how she feels. Even if she felt like she could change, she feels at her heart she couldn't. Like, even if like she got to the point where like, maybe I am a shitty person, like she'll always believe she's a shitty person. It's like, there's a little bit of like intrinsic stuff there that I like. I also like that Homelander's like just turned off by her. Besides the one thing, that,
it's how done he is with everybody.
It's the best, and I mean we'll get to him. But
I mean, let's just go right to Sage then, because that's the piece of where Homelander's like he needs something. So, Sister Sage, crazy name. Sage. Living in Detroit. Mm-hmm. She was on Teenage Kicks with A-Train. Oh, we didn't even talk about A-Train.
We'll talk to him. We'll talk about A-Train.
We'll talk to A-Train. We're gonna not the actor. We're gonna talk to A-Train.
We'll talk about A-Train. I think he gets a little bit more. Obviously, he has a little bit more to do. But Sage is, you know, she's the genius. They finally got a super genius on the show.
The world's smartest woman. Nope, smartest person alive. World's smartest person alive. Sister Sage.
Yeah.
What's Baron Mordo doing here? Wait, your first name is Carl?
Yeah, so Homelander, like, to your point, is, like, done with all the yes men. Mm-hmm. We need people in the Seven. We need better people in the Seven, like, people that are gonna, like, speak up to me and not be so afraid of me. So we find Sister Sage, and she's just like, yeah, like, to your point, like, she kind of just gets the wheel spinning in his head a little bit about, like, what if you were the president? Like, what if you were in charge of the world?
What's happening is they're trying to round back out the Seven, because still corporate America, so they're trying to round out the Seven. They go through the entire list, whole bunch of Easter eggs in there. And then he sees it's like, world's smartest person, and, like, A-Train's like, nah, she's a jerk, like, she's annoying, doesn't matter. And Homelander's like, huh, I'm gonna go put on some civilian clothes. The first time we've ever seen him...
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah, it was weird. He's been naked or in the suit, so this has been the weirdest thing.
I didn't like him in civilian. I didn't like him in civilian clothes. It was unsettling.
He's like an anti-Clark Kent. It rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Anyway, so he goes to her apartment. She's got books for days. She's eating Taco Bell. Good time. Mm-hmm. Good time. Homelander's just like, hey, I heard you were kind of smart, and she's just like, yeah, I know you're getting older. I know that your prostate isn't working the same. I know what you want. And he's just like, how do you know any of those things? She's like, didn't you read the tagline of my character? I'm the world's smartest person. So he essentially says, what would you do? And she's just like, it's not about you. It's about the people that follow you. That's how we can truthfully get this done.
Yeah. And
it's almost like they're talking about the real world. Anyway.
And it's also like the point of, like, you're going about this world domination thing all wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, you're God, essentially. Like, just be God.
Right.
she's like, you're overcomplicating the situation. Like, you don't need... Well,
again, and we're going to talk about Homelander in 1 second, but Homelander asked his own personal question is, like, what do I want? Like, and this is what season 3 did really, like, he got everything he wanted. He did. He got everything he wanted. Like, Soldier Boy's out of the picture.
Well...
Just wait.
Yeah. And then, but yeah, like, Sage, and then I do enjoy that the through line of, like, all these characters feel like they kind of have an angle on him, and then they realize how unhinged he is. And even Sage is like, oh shit. Mm-hmm. Like even Sage was like, this is kind of crazy.
You said that. I don't think I might be the only person. I think she's playing along. I think she's equated for any and every last thing that what he can do.
You would hope so. But also, like, the problem with writing geniuses is the genius can only be as smart as the writers. Right, yeah. So, like, you don't actually know how, like, the depths of her intellectualism until the show finishes and we see what happens. So, like, I mean, I guess they could always write to that point if they chose to. Like, no, she actually knew what was going on the entire time, which, like...
To your Kripke point, yeah.
How many times can you actually get away with that?
Right.
If you're not Yoshi Toranaga.
Right. Because that guy knew everything.
He did know everything.
And those writers were genius.
But I believed it. Right. I believe that he knew everything.
Why would I tell a dead man my plan? We're going to talk about Shogun, actually,
We did, yeah. We're going to do another 4-hour Shogun episode.
Into women's private quarters.
A-Train. Finally got his redemption arc.
A-R-C, baby. That's an arc. That's an arc right there.
He finally got one. It finally happened. We finally we Jamie Lannistered A-Train.
Yeah, we did. That's the best comparison you could have made. It's somebody that was so far gone and, like, a definitive. This is this is one of the villains of this show. Like, this guy is no good. He's no good, rotten, dirty, stinking A-Train. Maybe not. Maybe not.
He was redeemed so well that everyone was sure he was going to die in the finale.
I was going on TikTok and I saw every A-Train edit. Like, my boys, I was like, you remember when A-Train murdered Robin, right? Like, did we forget?
And he killed, what's her name?
Popclaw.
Yeah.
Killed his girlfriend. Killed heaps of people.
Got his brother crippled.
Right. Like, A-Train's not a good guy, but that's the point. He's like, I don't need to be Like, good isn't it?
I might not be a good guy, but I'm not the worst guy.
Mm-hmm. Homelander's the worst guy. Like, I'm not Homelander. Like, even to the point, like, oh man, that scene with the kid where he's like, and then he follows it up the next episode. He's like, when I saved you last week, I saved you in last week's episode.
I became a real hero.
Yeah, he said that kid looked at me like I was a superhero. Like, anything that I've ever done for Vought in the last how many years
has all been fabricated.
Will not like, I haven't felt like all the screaming fans have never even come remotely close to that kid's look in that eye when I saved you.
And like just the culmination of like the thing between him and Huey, when he was like, "I'm sorry, Huey," like,
and it came to a head in season 3 too, when he said like, "Stop acting like we're so much different. Like, we aren't too much different. Like, you made a mistake, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
At least I owned up to my mistake."
And then they clasp their hands and flex their biceps together. And then we get the really cool, like the full turn when he fights the Deep.
Right.
You know something, Deep? I always hated your ass.
Same, bro. Same.
And then he puts the hands on the Deep, and that's the moment. Like, you're like, wait, I'm rooting. Why am I rooting for A-Train?
You're like, oh shoot.
I'm wrapped up in it. Like, I feel like he got the most satisfying arc of the entire season, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's just, and it's like, again, it's one of the things we always talk about. Like, sometimes simple is better. This isn't an overcomplicated thing.
It's a redemption arc. It's classic redemption arc, and but when I feel like just like a personal preference, like the redemption arc when it's done well is the best kind of character arc trope that you can get.
It's so easy to like revenge arc. Like, revenge arc is easy in the sense of like, we can, like, somebody killed somebody should get their Abby from The Last of Us. If somebody kills somebody, like, somebody should get their lick back. That's fine.
Yeah.
For this, a redemption arc, to your point, why it's so satisfying, it's because, like,
you have to pull a character out from
the
holes of villainy.
Right. And it's like, even further with that, like, sometimes life is difficult to do the right things a lot of time, especially in A-Train shoes. Like, A-Train was this corporate shill for how long? Like, and he was blinded. Like, he was like, there's no good to be he probably learned early. Like, he probably was like Annie at one point. He was like, I'm gonna be a hero, and then he got there like, oh, there's no such thing as a hero. And what makes what they did with him this season so remarkable is they flirted with it so much throughout the other seasons. Like, is this going to be the thing that puts him onto the side of good? And then he pulls back. Yeah, and then season 3 he actually flips it. He actually goes further back into being a bad guy again.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, like he's cooked. Like he's never gonna He's never gonna snap out of this until he does.
You know how they structured it to make sense? He did it for himself first when he kills Blue Hawk. Like, he did it for himself first to realize, I can do this for other people too. Like,
and it's also a realization, like, him killing Blue Hawk is the viewer's realization that, like, he's not a great guy, but he still has some type of morality.
Yeah, and, like, there's always going to be worse guys than, like, look at Blue Hawk himself. And
exactly,
Blue Hawk is, like, Care Bears compared to Homelander. Like, yeah. Like, there's nothing as bad. Like, I'm not a good person, but, like, I can do good things. And that was the piece of, like, that look in that kid's eyes, like, I'll never get something like that from whatever Vought would do.
He will unfortunately be cooked next season, though.
He's getting violently murdered.
He might even get killed by Butcher.
Which would be so interesting.
Because Butcher could, wheel around like, no, when I said, like, all of them, like, A-Train's not redeemable.
Right.
Like, I don't care what he did for MM.
Obviously, what it's going to come to a head to is probably later down the season in season 5. It's going to come down to Annie. He's going to probably try to kill Annie, and he's like, well, what are you doing? Like, he's like, no, I'm killing every single last one. I don't care if it's her.
Yeah, he's got his mentality back.
Yeah.
Like, he got cured by the parasite, and now he's got that season 1 mentality back about, like, now they all gotta go. Like, besides Ryan.
Right.
Like, they all gotta go.
And that's the point, to your point about, like, why they're the same side of the different side of the same coin. Like, Homelander doesn't care if every single human was gone off the planet. He would actually probably prefer it that way. Like,
besides Ryan.
And that's the whole point for Ryan being the first natural born. So he's the best of both worlds. Like, he physically came from both factions of that side.
Yeah. Speaking of Homelander, I guess we'll wrap it up.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Run him his Emmy.
Well, yeah, let's just talk about Anthony Starr for a little bit. I mean, he is one of the most important television characters probably ever. Like, he's probably it's going to be one of the most recognizable, one of the best performances out of an actor in television that you will ever find. There's no if, and, or but. You know how I know it's good? That's not Anthony Starr. That's just Homelander. That's just and his best friend Metro Booming. But that's just Homelander.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, episode 4, when like it's like a Homelander, it's essentially a Homelander bottle episode, where he goes back to the Red Room, and it's not the Red Room, but you know what I mean. And you're in this position where you're like, I kind of get it. Like, I kind of get why he did what he did. Like, and I'm just like, they tortured him and, you know, pushed him to, like, they're also bad people, even though they're humans.
Right.
Like, it's funny. Like, I find myself like, when he's at work dealing with his coworkers, and I'm like, I kind of get it. I kind of get like why he's so frustrated. like he's finally. I wouldn't say finally, because I think he always knew. Like, I think truly like the only person he felt he could rely on in the 7 was Maeve.
Mm-hmm. Because Maeve is like, I see you for who you are, and Homelander's like, I also see you for who you are.
And you're like, you're not incompetent. Like, I don't have to boss you around.
Right. You're pretty, and it's not even like a power thing. It's just like, you're not an idiot. So,
So now he's surrounded by idiots.
Right.
And then he brings Firecracker on, and he thought that was going to be nice. And then he's like, oh, you're just another one of these. Like,
you're probably the worst version of this too.
Yeah. But you have, you know.
Right.
So I'm willing to let that slide. But any other time she's not doing that with him, he's repulsed by her.
Right.
Remember when she coughs?
Yeah, he's like, oh my God.
He's like, go sit over there.
Yeah.
And then she goes like one chair down. He's like, further. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much out on all of them except for Sage at this point.
All right, what's the plan? What's Sage's plan?
Conquer the world?
Conquer the world.
World domination. The same thing it is every night, Binky boy.
Right.
Take over the world.
So here's my thing for Sage's plan. Why it's great. Because she's just having a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to reveal that in season 5. She's like, and she kind of touched on it at the end of season 4. Like, she walks out. She's not even in her suit. She's just in like that turtleneck and jacket. She's just like, I just wanted to see if I can do it. This is fun.
Yeah.
And again, that's the whole piece for the genius character, which makes a lot of sense and makes it more humanized. It's like, I just wanted to see if I can do it. Like, and that's the true fear of the genius character, is like the indifference. Like, it's kind of like getting into like Hickman's Reed Richards, where it's like, and we always joke about it, like bad dad Reed Richards. Like, Reed Richards at the end of the day is like, he's a family man, but like, his mind sometimes outraces like the logic, like his logical mind outraces the emotional feeling of having a family.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's Tony. So it's also the Ultron thing. Like, I just wanted to see if I could do it.
Right. Like, I'm not indifferent to anybody. Like, if somebody kills somebody, if one race ends another race, she's like, I just wanted to see if I can have fun. And like, it makes sense because like her motivation is like, you know, being the smartest woman alive or smartest person alive doesn't matter. Like, I cured cancer. And the doctors said, good job, little girl. Now you're going to watch your grandmother die, when she didn't have to. She's like, I want to see if I can pull this one off and see if people will actually listen. Like, you've got the most powerful man on the planet dead to rights. And this is to your point about Homelander, like the thing she wasn't equating for. And again, for the genius character, she's equating for everything logically. She's not equating for emotion. And Homelander, unfortunately, after episode 4, he's gone. This is the break we were waiting for.
Yeah.
For 3.5 seasons. Like,
yeah, you thought it was going to be the rally killing when he realizes that he can get away with literal
but
murder.
Still, there was a little piece of like, and he goes back to the corporate sense. Like, he can walk around that tower, murder every single person if he wanted to, but it's the programming that they put into his head. He's like, Edgar talks about it, and then the doctors confirm it in episode 4. Like, we broke your brain essentially, and we rewired your brain to be obedient so you don't murder everybody on the planet.
And now he just doesn't care.
Yeah, and he needed to murder everybody there to get there.
And it goes back to like what he has the back and forth with Starlight in season 2, I think, where he's like, when she's gonna release the tape of what he said on the plane, he said, "Go ahead, and if you do, like, I'm gonna tear this whole motherfucker down."
Yeah, like I'm like, let's start with the critical infrastructure. Like, I will fly through New York and physically destroy every building, every corner of New York if I have to. I'll murder everybody on this planet if I... Okay, like, let's...
And who's gonna stop me?
Right, there's not one person that can. And what's great piece about Newman is you're like... it's funny for Newman because, like, obviously, logically in your brain, you're like, that's the villain, right? But then also you're like, oh, I hope she kind of is there to kill Homelander. And then you find out, because I think she tries it. So we get later in the season, you find out basically that, you know, he outs it to the world, he lasers her. I think she tries it. I think she tries to pop his head on TV, and I think she's like, oh, shoot, like, I can't. Mm-hmm. And then to the point, for Butcher, it's like, Butcher then killing Newman kind of sets up, like, maybe he can do it. Maybe, because we find out Newman's invulnerable, Homelander's obviously invulnerable. Newman tries to kill Homelander, it doesn't work. Now, Homelander, or Butcher kills Newman, now you're like, oh, wait, like, maybe he's the only one that can do this.
And there's one other player at play.
Exactly.
And it's Ryan, I guess, is another player in play.
But I thought it was Frenchie. Just kidding. I thought it was Colin.
The post finale stinger is that Homelander finds Soldier Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already, I believe, said that Soldier Boy is going to be set up as an antagonist in season 5.
Right. But to who? That's,
right.
Who is the antagonist for?
And we don't know, obviously, because he's been on literal ice this entire season. We don't know what he remembers. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't know where he's at. Right. Like, we don't know what his mindset is when whether or not assuming Homelander is going to be the one to wake him up.
I think Homelander's going to try to spin it, too, as, like, a family affair. Yeah. So, like, when he wakes him up, it's going to be, like, Soldier Boy, Homelander, and Homeboy all together. Yeah. What a crazy name. The three of them all together as like a family, and Butcher's going to be like, I'm murdering all three of them if I have to. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be Butcher's thing. It's like, he's going to do the thing where it's going to get to the end, and he's going to be like, I can't kill Ryan. And then, you know, Kessler in his mind is going to be like, you said all of them. So, here's all of them. And... we're going to get informed a lot from Gen V Season 2 as well. Like, that's probably going to be a big... Yeah.
And not as, the season didn't tie as much into Gen V as we might have thought it did.
Yeah, it was just, we got
the virus.
The virus, the Homelander going to save Ashley. She in the first episode, she's like, thanks, Homelander. Homelander's like, ugh.
And then, Kate and Sam show up for a bit.
Somehow Kate and Sam returned.
Yeah, they're like the 7 sleeper agents, essentially. Like, they're not actually in the 7, but they're like 7 adjacent.
Well, they're next up. They're probably going to insert both of them into the 7.
So I also imagine that's...
They're like when, like, Team USA puts one college player on the team. That's exactly
that whole thing might get resolved in Gen V Season 2.
Sure.
Because assume, like, the rest of that crew has to break out of wherever they are and probably confront Sam and Kate and maybe bring them back on their side.
Well, that's what I think. So I think there's going to be 3 planned fronts. There's going to be Homelander's plan, and we're probably going to get to a head like the January 6th. Well, Singer's been arrested, so
yeah.
What's his name is the president? I forget if he was the attorney general. Whoever the guy was from season 1 that came back for this season.
He's the Secretary of State. Yeah.
Who's essentially just Mike Pence, right? That's how I read him.
Kinda, yeah.
So, because he does what Mike Pence did. He's like, nobody's gonna not tell me that the election's certified. So,
yeah.
With Homelander standing right behind him, like, they're probably gonna get to the front where Homelander's like, no, we're gonna do this. Like, we're basically turning America into a soup state, like a police soup state.
Yeah, because he deputizes all the soups.
Well, they pull off martial law, and then also the most dangerous team against them, the boys, is broken. Like, they break the boys. Like, Huey gets taken by Kate, by whatever her name is, I forget what her name is. Cindy from season 2?
Yeah.
That we hadn't seen in so long that people were like, we need her back. She's back. And she's more dangerous than ever. Obviously, Frenchie gets taken by Kate. I don't know what I think. You know what I think? They're probably going to make Frenchie find out how to kill all the soups that oppose them.
Yeah, and I do feel like Kate's going to, like, potentially, like, Winter Soldierize Frenchie a little bit. Mm-hmm. And, like, you know, brainwash him into being, like, their soup killer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think that could happen.
Yep.
Like, Frenchie should, like, a masked man shows up to try and, like, kill Kimiko, and she rips his mask off, and it's Frenchie.
Right.
You're like, oh, no.
Right. What about Colin? Right. Who else do we got? And then MM he goes with, I forget what he does at the end. Oh no, Love Sausage got him. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. The only members of the boys that are free right now are Starlight and Butcher.
Yeah, and Butcher
and Kimiko.
Right.
Kimiko got taken.
Kimiko's Sam from Gen V is like,
you're Sam from Gen V.
Yeah, you're Sam from Gen V, and it's like And it's such a good comp for her too, because like she's like, oh, surely Kimiko can demolish anybody, and I'm like, oh wait, probably not Sam though, because Sam's a
5'8" juggernaut.
Right. Juggernaut.
It's the world's tiniest juggernaut.
You better keep your mouth shut. She doesn't like the chatter. What juggernaut are you? What is this?
So yeah, it's just.
Why were you from like Boston? That juggernaut from Deadpool and Wolverine. Where are you from?
So Butcher and Starlight are the only members of the boys that are currently free.
And is he even a member of the boys anymore?
No.
It's just her. And she's a soup. Boys are cooked.
But I think Starlight's eventually going to link up with the Gen V crew.
Well, yeah, she's probably going to try to... Well, what her whole thing is going to be, it's going to be a civil war. She's going to try to get her own team together. I'm putting a team together. the boys.
The girls.
The girls.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, they definitely laid a this is going to be the final season, so they're obviously everything has to come to a conclusion.
Right. I'm expecting full out anarchy this season, like full out, like anything that they were reserving for, like the. It's funny that I listened to the Script Apart podcast with one of the writers for Fallout, and they were talking about why are we so obsessed with the end of the world scenario, like. That's something, like, in media that, like, we keep seeing and, like, people love it. Like, they love the end of the world thing to keep happening and happening.
Yeah.
So, like, I think this season 5 is going to be that. This is going to be, like, the police state, like, absolute anarchy going off, like, martial law, like, nothing is good type of season.
Yeah.
I just hope... It's funny enough that I'm thinking about it this way. It's my Anthony Mackie thing for Captain America 4. Don't forget who the main character of the show is, and that's... It's Huey, like, you're not necessarily the main character, but who the point of view character is. Like, don't forget that, like, Jack Quaid still needs to be probably the most important person in there to keep everything glued together.
Yeah.
And keep Butcher together. That was one of his biggest points.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And then, like I said, we're going to see what Gen V Season 2, how that ties in. I assume it will tie in a little more substantially than this season, the first season did to the second, to this season of The Boys. And we know that Jared Padalecki is apparently coming. I've seen some theories thrown around that he might be an aged up Ryan.
That would be kind of interesting. I don't know how much I'd like that, because I'm not a big fan of when shows and movies do that, or sometimes it all depends on how you package it. But,
House of the Dragon.
Right. Like, where you throw it forward to but that has stipulation, because there was a show that already had been made.
But how much is he gonna age that he turns into 40-year-old Jared Padalecki?
Well, that's my point of, like, I don't necessarily love when shows do that, when they're like, let's throw it forward and like, but how did we get here? And like, this is a little weird. So how did we get here?
I think he just ends up as some type of one-off scene with Soldier Boy, right?
Maybe, or they do the Mr. Marathon thing where he's just in the show to say that we completed the Supernatural Boys crossover.
Yeah.
So
they'll give him a scene with Jensen and probably that.
Yeah, like I said, he's probably going to be Mr. Marathon, like the speedster that came before A-Train, and like they were probably in the 7 together at the same time.
Put him in the Jensen spinoff.
Sure, I think that would actually be a good idea. Like, let the two of them cook together. Put Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Find a way to put Kessler in there too.
Yeah. So, but I think that's really all we know about season 5 is Jared Padalecki will probably be in it, and that Soldier Boy is, positioned to be an antagonist.
Yeah, and obviously I'm not naive, so I'm assuming Anthony Starr is going to have one of the single best performances in television history next year. Like he's probably going to be properly one of the most important villains we've ever seen on television. And like it'll be properly like solidified next year of like he is modern villainy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen such a wretched hive of scum and villainy.
And that's it. That's The Boys season 4.
The Girls is hilarious.
All in all, I think I enjoyed like the overarchingness of it for the most part. If not, some of our major main characters didn't really get a ton to do.
Yeah.
But thoroughly enjoyed the A-Train redemption arc.
This season is this season is still good.
It's still good. Yeah, for sure.
This season is still very good.
Thoroughly enjoyed the A-Train redemption arc. Really enjoyed Starlight's arc for the most part. Homelander's characterization continues to be effortlessly fantastic. And I think we set Butcher up to be in a position where he might also be a villain. So that's also very interesting. It's just like, to your point, just a little disappointed in the Huey arc this season. I think his character got kind of shuffled aside, which is unfortunate because, like you said, he's the point of view character, so he should be a little more elevated.
To your point about like satirical places of operating storytelling wise, like a character like Huey is very important for that, because like for satire you kind of need somebody with you to kind of usher you along of like, no, it's fine that this is like this. Like, this isn't absurd. Like, this isn't an absurd piece. So that's the only thing. That's the only thing that I'm kind of griped with this season. This show is woke because woke doesn't exist.
Yeah,
and it's good.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what next season holds. I mean, we talk all the time, like, finales are hard.
Yeah. This one might be one of the, in terms of, like, overall television finales all time, this might be one of the tougher ones to pull off. This might be one of the most difficult ones that they have to stick the landing on because of how much traction the show has got. I mean, this show kind of started, like, the modern age, like,
alt superhero stuff.
Alt X-rated superhero stuff. Like, this show is like, and again, to my point about Homelander, like, you're also holding one of the most important TV characters with you too. Like, this is a difficult piece to end on. So this is gonna be a doozy for last season. Yeah, it's gonna be a difficult plane to land. I mean, series finales are very difficult. Like, it's difficult to wrap up, 5 plus seasons of storytelling. Like, it's hard. It's hard to do that compared to like a film where it's just a one shot. Like, you have to just worry about unless they do a boys film. Yeah. Just kidding. Didn't they talk about that though? Didn't they start? He's like, I would be down to do like a movie that released in theaters. 5 seasons in a movie. Why did we need a Mandalorian and Grogu movie? I don't know. Why just not do Mandalorian season 4? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm very keen to see what happens. I mean, this is definitely probably one of the more, as far as like fandom shows, this is probably the most anticipated series finale since Thrones, probably. Yeah, this is going to be one of like, it's funny how I think about like social media for it, but like when The Boys is coming out, people are talking about it heavy when this is coming out. House of the Dragon was coming out, people are talking about it heavy. Like, this show has a lot behind it. Yeah. So to stick the landing is nigh impossible. And no matter what, people are going to be mad. My theory, my stance and theory on that. It's not the fact that you're mad about the actual episode. You're mad that the thing's coming to the end, but that's your only way to kind of get your emotion out about it. Yeah, so just get ready for that now. People are going to be mad. People are mad about stuff that was actually happening and they talked about in the show. What do you think they're going to do when the show actually ends? Yeah, they're going to be mad. That's it. That was fun. The Boys is always a good time. So, that'll do it for us this week. You want to give out some awards for this one? Oh, yeah, let's do that. This is a good one to give out some awards for. Let's do some awards. Let's get some awards out there. I think Anthony Starr should get his own. We should give him I know what his award is going to be. Also, where do we rank this in the... Oh, no, we can't rank it in the movie tier list. We need to come up with like a TV show tier list. Yeah. That'll be a fun one. Let's start with best relationship. Colin. I think it's still Annie and Huey, even though obviously it had some unnecessary writing speed bumps that they didn't have to throw in there. I still think that's the relationship I'm most behind and invested in. It's Ryan and Butcher. It's the best relationship out of this show, because maybe it's kind of like the quasi-tri relationship of Ryan, Butcher, and Homelander is probably the most interesting one of. I don't know where this is going to go, and I'm very afraid for not only them, but a lot more people than them of whatever comes of this. And it could be a situation of, like, thinking about it from, like, the multiverse is played out, but, like, a kind of, like, the choice will lead to a different timeline. Like, maybe Ryan will always get to that point of being a villain because these are his only 2 options. Like, he doesn't have... Or his third option is not to play. Yeah. Which, like I said, I think that's entirely possible that that's the path he ends up going. Most underrated character? A-Train. I don't think he's underrated because of how much play he got this season. I think he's underrated because I think it's just, I think he can just kind of, the redemption arc kind of just like, they stepped on the gas finally.
Like, it was happening, like, so slowly, and then they just went full send with it. So I'm just like, oh, like, he's actually... Like, it took me, like, a while to realize, like, oh, they're actually doing it. Like, they're actually gonna go full send with it, and they're actually gonna, like, no strings attached to it. Like, they're actually putting him on the heroic side.
Right. It's Hugh Campbell.
Ah, yeah.
Because I don't know what I don't know what type of timing Simon Pegg was on when he was doing the acting. That was probably some of the best acting in that entire show, which is awesome. Most heroic moment?
I would say it's either A-Train beating up the Deep or Annie beating up Firecracker.
That's fun. I'm thinking about this more allegorically of the fact of, like, in universe and, like, the character itself, like, it's just A-Train saving MM.
Yeah.
And in front of that kid, it's like, that's the definition of being a hero. And it's also his, like, the revelation to himself of, like, not only, like, this is what it is, but, like, I'm capable of doing this on top of that, too.
Right.
So, good stuff by A-Train. Best bit?
Homelander being disgusted by Firecracker.
It's good. It's real funny. Real stupid, real fun. I quite like the Deep with Ambrosia.
Yeah.
Voiced by Tilda so the octopus that's sitting in the tank.
Yeah.
Voiced by Tilda Swinton of all people.
Yeah. And I also like the Deep and Noir's dumb henchman routine.
Yeah, it's funny. It's good. Best battle? Probably
the office fight,
right.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Favorite cameo?
Will Ferrell.
Oh yeah, that's such an easy one. What's that smell? It smells like Oscar. He's like, you sure I'm not coming off
just that we talked about it when we talked about episode 1 through 3, but just a reminder of how effortlessly funny Will Ferrell is.
Yeah, and then also what this show is.
Yeah.
Like, that something like that can happen. And, like, my brain didn't even, like, it wouldn't let me recognize, like, the absurdity of it because of how far we've been into the show. Like, it wouldn't let me be like, this is crazy. It's like, oh, shoot, that's just Will Ferrell. Best 1v1? Firecracker and
Starlight.
Yeah. Because finally.
Yeah. Her getting pummeled was pretty good. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Best heat check performance? Marty? Come on, Marty!
What was, heat check performance, huh?
Oh, I know what mine is. This is actually pretty easy, and I can't believe you're not even thinking about it.
Were you going to say Kessler?
Nope, absolutely not. It's Edgar for one episode, because John Arnold Esposito comes back for one episode, and he's cooking.
Yeah. Jensen Ackles laying in a tank?
It's good stuff. His presence alone is too much. Funniest moment?
Oh, man.
Man, you might be right about when she gets to the stage for her show, and she coughs, and he's like, oh my god.
It's so funny. His facial acting is just incredible. I'm trying to think of, like, what made me laugh the most.
That Will Ferrell thing.
The Will Ferrell thing is really
I
funny.
saw him, and I was like, wait a second.
He dials it up to full Will Ferrell so fast that it doesn't even give you a chance to, like, react to it. Right. And you're just like, oh my god, like, he's so funny.
Best exposition dump?
I like Sage explaining her plan to Homelander.
Yeah, it's good. What is the best? Is it learning about Tech Knight and is somebody going to match his nasty?
Ugh.
Oh, what a freak. We didn't even talk about that.
Good. I'm glad he's dead.
God. He's dead? Zendaya. The safe word was Zendaya. What is this show, man?
Get him out of here.
Best source material callback?
I mean, we're so far removed from it. We're so far removed from the source material.
I mean, it's just Tech Knight being a freak.
I guess. Webweaver,
yeah. Also a freak.
Yeah.
Webweaver. God.
It's probably that. Or, like, I mean, through line of, like, Butcher's turn to, like, proper villainy is, like, really the only through line that the show has to the source material anymore.
Sure. Best NPC? It's Firecracker, but it's not for the reason that you think.
I was gonna say, the stunt guy that Ryan
Coy?
kills. Yeah.
Man, R.I.P. Coy. You're a real one. Is it like noir in the sense of, like, you just get replaced and like video games, and then they just keep coming back.
It's like this guy again.
Like that might be the most like NPC like actuality thought process behind it. Favorite action sequence?
It's not an action sequence so much as just sequence in general. Is Homelander massacring the lab?
God,
get in the oven, Marty.
No, that wasn't Marty.
Not Marty. What was his name?
Was it David?
Something like that. John the Boys.
Kevin? Yeah, John the Boys. Best song? It's the finale song. I forget who's. Is that Nirvana's song? I forget yeah. Good stuff. Or was it when they did Old McDonald at a farm after the killer sheep? Favorite line?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know. Do you have one?
I mean, it's just that bit. It might be the scientist that came downstairs to talk to Homelander when they walked into the room, and she basically said, like, you're still a piece of us. Like, you're still not really, like, you want to think of yourself as this dangerous man. I love the fact that she keeps calling him John. He's just like, don't call me that. It's like, you're John to me. Like, you're still...
John Homelander.
You're still nothing to me. Like, you're not really anything. You could be a psycho. I know you're about to murder me in a second, but, like, you're still not going to win. Like, we still have you by the balls, essentially.
I think mine's probably the simplest one, but it's the returning full strength Butcher. Oi! I was like, yeah, he's back.
Oh, it might be Butcher's just like, by the way, you're all effing welcome.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Oi. I was like, oh, he's back. Yeah, I felt that
like
one.
The other one was like, ugh. And I was like, oh, he's sick. And now this one is like, oi. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he's healthy. He's good. He's back. Best world building or lore moment?
Ryan being the first naturally born soup, I think is important.
That's a really good one. It's not again, it's an allegorical way of thinking about it, but it's not only good for like in universe, like
it feels important.
Yeah, exactly, and it's also like outside like writing, like that's actually a smart thing to play on. Of like he's Jesus, like he's your messiah, and to the point of where Sage even makes the point of like. People love their white guys. They love their main character white guys.
Yeah.
Homeboy's a crazy name though. Favorite shot from the season? Oh, it's Homelander covered in the blood.
Yeah.
Coming back from the elevator.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Favorite performance? 3, 2, 1.
Anthony Starr.
That was easy. Favorite character? 3, 2, 1. Homelander.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to say Starlight for this season, but I just think a couple things just knock her down a little bit.
I'll remix mine. I'll take Sage this season because I'm a sucker for like you can beat me physically, you can't beat me intellectually, you can't.
Yeah.
I still can do whatever I want whenever I want.
Yeah.
You can kill me, but it won't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then favorite moment.
I think it's still probably the lab massacre is so insane.
Yeah.
And again, they do the thing where like they made Homelander at least for that brief moment, they make him the protagonist. Cause like you know, obviously the violence is one thing, but like you understand what he did and like why he did it. For like the first time he has like a justifiable action.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, wait, am I rooting for him?
No.
A little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, it helps with the flashbacks. It helps that we had already seen him go through this thing, and like, it helps that in the beginning of the first episode, they were like throwing the flashes at you of like him as a kid, him with the blanket in the lab of like, and like just he was a subject to them.
But you know, I mean, and honestly, like me personally, like, what it reminds me of is the Sephiroth realization in Final Fantasy VII when you realize like Hojo's the monster, and Sephiroth is reacting to the monstrosities done upon him, and like his self-discovery is, you know, what forces him to become who he is, and like that's what it kind of reminded me of.
The funniest moment from the show is Firecracker squirting the milk into his mouth. I'm sorry, that's a great point, but I thought about it for a second because you were saying all these things about Homelander. I was like, that was the funniest moment of this show because I too had the same expression that he had on his face. I was like, what the.
I didn't like it. Again, I'm just like, ugh.
Brother,
No, not like this.
I'm going to agree with you. of the whole lab sequence. My favorite, that's the best. My favorite one is it's not a favorite, but it's the death of Hugh Campbell. I couldn't believe, like, this show has some of the better acting that you'll find, but I just couldn't believe, I was like, because it just came out of nowhere, I was like, why is this like an incredible performance we're getting out of this? Just the whole episode itself.
Yeah.
Gets revealed that Huey used the compound V to try to bring his dad back to life, but his dad, a byproduct is his dad loses his memory, so he doesn't, or no, his memory gets reverted back, what was it, however long ago, like 20 years or something like that. So it brings it back to when Huey was a kid, so obviously he doesn't recognize adult Huey, but he recognizes Huey's mom's also in this season. Mm-hmm. Maybe if they made Huey the main character, these would be some essential things we could talk about.
Yeah. Should we do our Trinity Awards? Our final Trinity Awards?
We have to. And then I'm gonna add it. I'm gonna add a new one. I got a new one cooking up. Let's get it.
Go for it.
If I can find it. All right. The Glenn Powell Movie Star Award.
Anthony Starr.
Yeah, it's easy. Very easy. The John David Washington Can They Act Award.
I'm gonna ruffle some feathers.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No. I'm gonna say Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Wow, dude.
I think he plays some offshoot of the same type of person in everything he's in.
Dude, relax. Jeffrey Dean Morgan could be... Me personally, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I love you, man. I think you're...
I love him, but I'm just like, is he just one type of character, everything?
Don't Jason Statham him.
Supernatural, Walking Dead, this. He's the same type of, like... Smug, smarmy, quippy kind of jerk. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, is he doing acting, or is this just who he is?
That's crazy, man.
Right?
Lord. My John David Washington Can They Act Award is going to go to... Is it Ryan? I hate to do it with kid actors. That's a good one, too. Always refrain from the kid actors for this. This show has great performances across the board.
I know, it was tough.
Difficult.
There were a couple ones that I was, like, marinating with, and I'm like, no, that person can act. No. Like, that's good.
Yeah, like, I can't really think of any. Like, even, like, down to, like, thinking about it from, like, a different perspective, like... Good acting doesn't always equate to drama acting. Like,
yeah,
like Chance Crawford as the Deep is still an incredible performance.
Yeah, because he plays it so well. Like, he plays dumb so well.
I'm gonna plead the fifth on this.
Whoa!
One. The first time, yeah, I was cowardice in this one.
I put my neck out and said Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah, you actually picked the worst possible one that you could have went with. The Denzel Washington They Can Act Award.
Jack Quaid.
I'm gonna go with Simon Pegg.
Yeah.
That was nuts. That was insane.
Jensen Ackles.
Being in the two. Wait a second.
Don't do it.
I want to say it. I want to do it.
Don't do it.
I really want to do it. Jensen Ackles is cool as heck, right? One of the coolest guys you can find.
But can he act?
I've been saying... Because he's got that, like, rough around edged, like, if I were to, like, give a person, like, if I were to give AI do Captain America, that's who he was. Or he's either the smug guy that's cool in the corner of the bar.
He's like early 2000s Chris Evans.
Or he's 2019 Chris Evans. So I beg the question.
I mean, he's got 15 years of Supernatural under his belt, and
right.
then he's got The Boys.
And you made a good point of, like, why wasn't he doing more things? Like, that was Jensen Ackles properly, because he was in, am I crazy? He was in Dawson's...
He's in Dawson's Creek,
right?
Yeah.
So, like, Dawson's Creek to Supernatural, and I'm like, why was he not on, like, a star? He's got the Hollywood name, Jensen Ackles. It's a Hollywood name. I beg the question, can Jensen Ackles act?
It's fair. That's what the award's for. That's the spirit of the award.
The A24 Let the Director Cook Award is easily episode 4.
Yes, it is.
Let's get this. No, I'm remixing mine. Taking it away. My A24 Let the Creators Cook Award will go to them not being afraid to go after the real world events.
That's a good point.
Let's talk about it. The Hugh Jackman is he, him, she, her, or they, them award.
Giancarlo Esposito. Mm-hmm. Because you know what? It's the exact, like, some of these awards are simple in the sense that, like, as soon as he showed back up, I'm like, he's him.
Yeah, yep. This man man walked out of jail and somehow found a suit. Like, I don't, like, how'd you do that? That was cool.
Yeah, so, like, yeah, it's Giancarlo Esposito.
Right, like, sometimes these are very simple ones, so I will abide by that one. I will live with that one. Wow, this show has an 8.7 on IMDb. That is wild. I'm gonna go with the Victoria Newman actor.
Oh, Claudia Demu?
Yeah.
Demu? I don't know how to say her last name.
I knew from when... Ooh, it could have been Sage too, but in terms of... Because this is an actor-predicated award. This isn't a character-predicated award, but... I mean, like I said, like, that's a proper good secondary villain to have in a show of, like...
Yeah.
And she kept getting more... And, like, they set it up first episode, like, oh, shoot, she can't die. And she could also kill anybody... at any moment's notice, too.
Yeah.
But she won't. Well, when she walked into that barn, or into, like, that little lab piece, and she started making all their nosebleeds, I was like, oh, that's power.
Yeah.
That's the
Cersei Lannister thing, yeah.
No, power is... No, power is power.
Yeah.
My new award, the Anthony Starr Unhinged Performance Award.
Oh, he wins. He wins.
He wins his own award. You won the first award of yours. I'm actually going to not pick him for this award.
No, he has to win it.
No. I'm picking Sage for this award specifically. You know why? I still don't know what she wants. And again, I just think she's having a big global destabilization laugh.
Yeah.
I think she's just like, this has been a good time.
Yeah, that's fair. Man.
Good television.
Good TV. Yeah, it's still good TV.
Good TV, man.
Like any criticisms we have are pretty nitpicky compared to...
Personal.
Yeah, compared to, other shows that we have.
Right, like...
The Acolyte. I don't want to keep kicking the Acolyte, but it was right there.
Acolyte's got good stuff in it.
It was right there.
The characters isn't one of them.
It was right there. Like, sometimes it's a fringe criticism, sometimes it's a bit heavier of a criticism, and I feel like any criticisms we made of this is just fringe, kind of nitpicky stuff. But overall, it's still really, really, really good. That's it. That's going to do it for us this week.
What you been doing, man?
What have I been doing? I've been rewatching Thrones.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing.
How far'd you get?
I've just finished season 1. Oh,
no, Ned Stark died.
Yeah. I finished season 1 and watched the first episode of season 2. It's fun. It's fun, with the I've never rewatched the entirety of Thrones since, like, before season 8. So, like, I've never done a rewatch of Thrones with season 8 included. So I've only ever seen season 8 once. The final season. Like, I only saw it the year that it aired, and I haven't gone back to it since. So, I mean, it's cool. It's cool, going back in time and seeing, especially the characters that are still alive by the time you get to season 8, kind of like seeing where they were and where they end up, is really, really fun.
Good. I like it. I just finished The Umbrella Academy. I don't know if we're gonna talk about it.
Talk about sticking the landing.
Infinitely, like, unfortunately for me to say, not a good last season, and it's just a show that I loved that show. I love that show so much. I used to scream to the mountains, especially season 1 and 2, like, how good, like, the alt superhero stuff, like, this is some of the best alt superhero stuff you can have. It's great character work, too. Like, that show notoriously had really good characters in it. Abandoned, like, 90% of that in this final season. And yeah. I'll say this for the last season. The last season should have been packaged into, like, what season 2's, like, budget was, and, like, hype anticipation. Like, that treatment needed to be onto this season for what they were trying to achieve. And, like, I can tell this season didn't have nearly the budget that those other seasons had. Specifically, season 2 did not have the budget that it had. I made that point to you that, like, Netflix had been in this way of, like, their original content wasn't, like, especially the shows, like, Stranger Things in the low season right now, like, Mindhunter's done, like, Umbrella Academy was one of those shows that they had of, like, look, like, this is one of the shows that we had. Like, they waited too long. Like, it'd been... Like, we'd already been away from it for so long. So, when was the last season of Umbrella Academy? 2022?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It had been 2 years, which is fine. Like, that's not a big deal that it had been 2 years. It's just the fact that, you abandoned all the feeling. Like, this show lost the feeling that I used to get from watching it big time. And again, that comes through the characters. Like, the decisions this season are just like head scratching. Like I just, some of the things that were happening, like I physically, like I couldn't believe it. I was just like, this just usurps everything that you were doing for 3 seasons. And like season 3 isn't some like Emmy award level season. Still fun. It's still a good time. Still a lot of like, you know, bigger world building stuff that goes on in there too. It's just, this season doesn't feel like it's a part of that same show. That's how I was looking at it. Like, this doesn't feel like it belongs here. So yeah, it's just unfortunate. It was only 6 episodes, so again, budgetary. Like I can tell that they took a lot of it away. Yeah, it's just frustrating. Like there's still good, there's still solid bits. Like as much as some of the character decisions don't make sense, like the performances are still the performances. Like you still get what you needed out of everybody too. It's just. I feel like there was a Netflix constraint on this season, and this might be one of the most apparent versions of that.
Yeah, which is a Netflix issue that they, you know, final seasons of these Netflix shows rarely ever hit the mark.
Right. And you made that point of, you were like, is Netflix kind of cooked, essentially? Like, are they to the point of, like, this is what their original content, or are they going to treat everything like this that had already been, like, later? And I told you, the only one that they're not going to do it for is Stranger Things. That's the only one that's probably going to hold its quality throughout the last second of the last season.
Yeah, I mean, you have this. It happened to this. I wanna hope that it won't happen to The Witcher, but it's going to.
Especially without Henry Cavill too.
Like it's, I sense a mail-in season coming.
Yeah.
For season 4 of The Witcher, and it's unfortunate because I do want to give Liam Hemsworth a shot, but like, I just feel like the Netflix is just like, look, we just gotta
get these out,
get it out there.
Yeah. Maybe in the future we can talk about the streaming wars. Maybe we'll title the episode The Streaming Wars, because, you know, Netflix was not only for just getting content onto a streaming service and just you pay an amount of money, like the revolutionary nature of it. Like, it was their original content that made it be like, I'll never forget, like, the coin flip in my mind was when The Irishman, like when Scorsese said, no, I'm going to make a movie. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you make movies for the movies. Like, he's like, no, this is a place I can distribute my movie. Like, what does it matter? So I'm putting my movie here. It's going to be released in theaters still, so it's fine. But this is going to come to streaming same time. And I was like, wow, like these streaming services have credibility for not only just like television, but like actual films too. So, and Netflix was the first top dog for this. They were the first one to be like, we can do this. Like, we can make our own things. Then Stranger Things catches fire. They acquire Cobra Kai. Like, you had all a Mindhunter. Like, how many original television shows did they have that were like must watches for everybody?
Yeah.
But now, like, it's almost like there's like a uniformity that comes with Netflix. Like a bunch of their content feels similar to itself.
Yeah.
And also, like, to get technical with it, like, they only allow a certain type of cameras to be used. Like, it's the Netflix approve. Like, that's a term that's always thrown out. Like, you have, like, Netflix only approves a certain amount of cameras. And I think this is a more of like a psychological, philosophical debate to think about it this way. But, like, it's almost like they want the uniformity. So, like, your brain thinks, oh, I'm watching Netflix. Like, it's Netflix. Like, if this isn't like something that came over from like properties wise, if this is an original thing, like, this is a Netflix thing that I'm watching.
Yeah.
Their subtitles are notoriously different from all the other streaming services subtitles. Like, this is like a Netflix thing that you're watching, and I want you to know it's a Netflix thing you're watching. Versus Apple TV, like, Max is the top. Like, Max has the best, or HBO has the best original content you can find now.
Yeah.
Apple TV is like, Apple TV and Amazon are probably battling for that second spot. Disney's probably after that, and probably what's helping Disney is Hulu. It's like it's probably like the Fox stuff is probably what's helping that FX. Like, that's helping them a lot in terms of like the original content.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. And then you kind of like just get into like the throes of like your Paramount's not bad, but Paramount has a lot of properties behind it too.
Peacock's the same way. Yeah.
Peacock is like Paramount, like they had the properties with them as well too. Paramount's on the up and Peacock's on the up and up though. They're starting to get
they have the NBC stuff, which helps.
And it's also like the non-narrative stuff, like the sports stuff like that. Yeah. Peacock just had the biggest global sports event you can have. Like, all those things Olympics, are important. Yeah. But in terms of like original content that I'm looking at everything, like Netflix like dropped the ball a bit. Like, they were uncontested, and now it's like I don't need my Netflix subscription anymore. It's how it feels a lot of the times. It's like, I need HBO Max. Like, I need Max.
Yes. Yeah.
I need Disney Plus. Like, I need Paramount. Like, do I need Netflix anymore?
Yeah. That's a great point. Socials. You can follow us on Twitter at ProjectINF_pod. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube at the Project Infinite Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram
at the Project Infinite Pod.
Next week, I don't know what we're going to do next week.
No, who knows? Who's to say?
Who knows?
I don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure. Happy birthday, Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, it is. It was Andrew Barfield's. Andrew Garfield's birthday yesterday.
The patron saint of the podcast.
Yeah. He turned 41.
Still young.
That's the most 28-year-old looking 41-year-old I've ever seen in my life. It's crazy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the movie that we think he might win an Oscar for is getting memed now because of a horse.
Yeah, not the horse.
The horse on the carousel made its way onto the internet, and now the horse has become a meme.
Why are we like this as people?
I mean, it's a pretty funny looking horse.
It is funny. Because like you don't even think about it in the poster, and then you saw it, and you're like, what the?
So his Oscar dreams might have been dashed by a meme.
No, that actually might help.
It might help. We'll see.
That movie's probably gonna be.
The movie's gonna be really sad.
Probably just gonna demolish everybody.
Yeah, that movie's gonna be really sad. Man. I'm already waiting.
Looking forward to anything coming out soon. I was thinking about this. Where it's about to be my bag of the year. It's about to be my time of the year. It's about to be Oscar season.
Trying to think. I don't know what's coming up.
What are you doing?
Oh, I'm going to Fan Expo and tomorrow.
Nice.
In Toronto.
Who's going to be there?
Giancarlo Esposito is going to be there.
Heck yeah, you better meet him.
Simu Liu is going to be there.
Ask him why ask him where Shang-Chi 2's at.
Friend of the show, Marina Baccarin's going to be there. Catherine Hahn and Joe Locke are going to be there to talk about some Agatha stuff. So I'm going to try and I think that's on Friday. So I'm going to try and Friday like. Can
you just tell Marina Baccarin I said hi?
Yeah, I will.
That's all I want. Just tell her my guy Court said hi. She'll know what's.
I think 4:30 on Friday. Catherine Hahn and Joe Locke are doing like an Agatha panel with Jack Schaefer.
That's gonna be fun.
So I'm gonna try and squeeze into that.
Just sneak in there.
I mean, you can go to all the panels and stuff. That stuff's all free once you get in.
There's gonna be 1,000 people there.
Friday, if I remember last year, Thursday, Friday's not busy. Saturday's insanely crowded. Sunday's not too crowded, but Saturday it's like insane. It's like I'm gonna get sick. That's gonna happen. Cameron Moynihan will be there. Tim Morrison will be there. Ben McKenzie, Gotham's Own.
Yes. Yep. I wonder why he's gonna be there, Marina Baccarin. It's almost like they're married.
Dolph Lundgren will be there.
He killed Apollo Creed. Get him out of there.
And then a host of anime voice actors will be there. Video game voice actors will be there. Comic creators will be there. I know Jeff Johns will be there. So I'm looking forward to that. I went last year and I'm going again this year. So nice. It's going to be a fun time.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that'll do it for us. Next week, like I said, we'll marinate on some things.
The iRobot episode.
Maybe it might be time. So that'll do it for us. From me, from the.
What do we talk about? The boys? Oh, careful! You gotta be.
I do gotta be real careful,
man. As soon as I hear the from Emma, then
yeah. Look, outside. You're the one who said he was dig this season. So
you didn't even let me finish my point about him being dig.
From the Hugh Campbell of the podcast.
Hugh Campbell?
Yeah.
I die.
I mean.
I die, but I give a great performance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really. There's really the boys. There's no good way out of this.
You could have just said Huey.
Nah. I don't know. Something about Huey that I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like the comparison.
Is this because he's 6'2"? And they joke about it the season that he's 6'2"? They joke about the fact that he's 6'2" and he can't fight.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do iRobot next week. That'll be fun. Goddamn robots, John.
What's the funniest movie we can do next week?
Madam Web.
Moonfall?
What if the moon's not what you think?
What do you mean, Roland Emmerich? What does that mean? Why is Patrick Wilson in here? What does that mean? Was Halle Berry in that movie?
Yep.
Jesus.
Madam Web.
Ooh, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes we never talked about, I don't believe.
We didn't.
Yeah, good movie. Good movie that I think we were pretty dang surprised at.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good conversation on modern franchising too.
Yeah. The Ape-averse.
Come on, man.
But yeah, we'll figure something out. So from me, I already signed off, and from you, the Hugh Campbell of the podcast,
I don't know.
I'm doubling down.
I don't know how I feel about it.
We will see you next week. Goodbye.
Peace.